Good morning, America. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. I'm Robert McNeely as President Trump will host a press conference in roughly 90 minutes from now. Now, this press conference will be focused on safely securing Washington, D.C., because when you look at the list of the 20 promises from last year, now 200 plus days in office, this president has accomplished most of those things, and some are rinse and repeats. We have to keep focused on securing a southern border with over 80,000 now applying to be ICE agents, including Superman himself, the legendary actor Dean Cain of television and screen, film, radio, and for a part-time as a commentator and journalist himself, now applying to help our southern border agents and our ICE agents specifically. So amazing to see that overwhelming show of support by the American citizenry in order to serve in a very dangerous job. Now, a great bonus signing with all of that, over 50,000 available upon becoming an ICE agent, but great to see an overwhelming success and call to service here in the country. Once, as the late, great John Fitzgerald Kennedy once said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And we're seeing that on a daily basis with this president. And through my recess, my recent vacation, what a week in politics can do in the culture, from hot jeans all the way to peace between Azerbaijan and historic enemies lasting 35 years in this conflict with Armenia, and one of the most bloody battles and wars that the legacy media did not care to talk about, but Christian communities in those regions, genocide was taking place, and we saw President Trump, who was not one who liked to shake hands when he was a businessman necessarily, but he said you have to do that now in politics, holding the hands of the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan at the White House. He does deserve, as the leaders mentioned there, the Nobel Peace Prize for his extraordinary efforts to bring peace to the world. And we know that on Friday, President Trump will be meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in the great state of Alaska. So two big items really to focus on, and a lot of this is through his trade policy and not only securing the southern and northern border within the United States, but also the tariffs bringing in billions of dollars for our country. Also, putting China up against the ropes. It's been crucial to not only national security and our future. We've had great guests on the show like Senator Tommy Tuberville mentioning over 2.2 million acres here in Alabama alone are foreign owned and by the adversary, the Chinese Communist Party. So much the governors and Congress can do in order to prevent this, and many moves have been made, including the work of Secretary Brooke Rollins over at USDA. As you might have noticed that press conference from a few short weeks ago with congressmen, senators, governors, state and local leaders, as well as federal officials focused on making sure the Chinese Communist Party is losing abroad. And President Trump mentioning that on Truth Social just a few hours ago, that the trade deficit with China will be made up by the need of soybeans. They'll be purchasing much of our soybean trade, which will help places like Iowa and Illinois. And that's where President Trump said thank you to President Xi. Somehow he finds a way to negotiate even with the worst of the worst. He is the deal maker in chief, and we see that now on a daily basis. And what a masterclass it's been, whether it's Meet the Press yesterday on NBC, and the anchor actually got to give her a lot of credit for calling out Governor J.B. Pritzker about how unfair Illinois' gerrymandered maps are. And it has been a masterclass in gerrymandering, because you have 44% of a state, the prairie state of Illinois, and those rascals, those demon rats that went running to J.B. Pritzker and his Hyatt fortune. Oh, it was fun to watch. But that was my neck of the woods, right around Lombard and Warrenville. And that was shortly followed up by Kristi Noem outside of Chicago in the suburb of Lombard, showing the hundreds of thousands of pounds of fentanyl and illegal guns, and also seizures made by the federal government that are protecting specifically Illinois and Chicago's neck of the woods, while Governor J.B. Pritzker really just pontificates and calls it a kindergartner's map on Stephen Colbert's show, the recently canceled Late Show that will take effect next year. So sad to see that go, as President Trump has mentioned the failing Late Show comics, or so-called comics, of Fallon and Kimmel and Colbert. Well, Colbert actually did some journalism work and put his hat on and asked the governor about why is he so upset with Texas when they can constitutionally authorize, per their state constitution, to redraw maps according to their state legislature. There's nothing wrong with that. When J.B. Pritzker back in 2021 signed off on a map that was extraordinarily gerrymandered, perhaps the worst in the entire country. In fact, the 13th District of Illinois looks something like an earthworm on LSD, as one of the great late-night hosts put it, and it sure does. I have to agree there. And Colbert mentioned to the rather large governor, is that really something that you could compare the two between Texas and Illinois? And he says, did a kindergartner draw this? He goes, oh, of course that's what happened. I mean, J.B. Pritzker doesn't even know how to respond to his own hypocrisy. 44% of the state voted for Donald Trump for president. Yet, they have 14 Democrats in the House of Representatives and only 3 Republicans. How does that work out? It's a little masterful art of gerrymandering, and Democrat attorneys who really dominate the state capitol in Springfield and control the lobby that controls Jelly Belly Pritzker. And we see the same thing in Maryland with only 1 Republican in the House of Representatives. Or take Massachusetts. It's a 9-0 vote with their gerrymandering. And it has happened throughout the country. So we'll take a deep dive on that this week, whether it be here on the live desk or the Voice of Reason every Thursday at 6 o'clock, as we await this crucial press conference. President Trump really solidifying his legacy by making America's cities safe again. And we saw what happened to Holly. Her last name has not been shared, in Cincinnati just a couple of weeks ago. No one should have to go out in these great, big, beautiful cities of ours and fear being attacked by criminal thugs waiting for people to come out of the club. And this is not, as Holly put it in an interview, not so much a racial thing. I don't want this to become a racial thing, although her attackers might have wanted that. But we do know that the thug that hit her, and I don't care what demographic background you are, if you are a man and you sucker punch a woman, you're a thug, period. No man should ever do that. This guy was let out of Fulton County Jail, and he has a rap sheet as long as anyone else. Somehow, he made his way up to Cincinnati, Ohio. And in this case that we know, not an illegal immigrant, but still, why are these DAs and these attorneys general letting out criminals, but then they were creating lawfare against President Donald Trump to prevent him from obtaining the White House once again? It's a question to think about, to ponder, as this person was let out of the Fulton County Jail and almost killed that beautiful woman, mother of 3, her youngest 5 years old, still having PTSD from all of this, afraid that her mother will be attacked again. And my question is, where are the men in America? Because still, with all of the accomplishments in 200 plus days of this extraordinary administration, you have a situation like that in Cincinnati, Ohio, where people are filming instead of getting in the middle of it and trying to stop these terrorist thugs. And they can be deemed terrorists, because if you're going out there to do that to your fellow man, to your fellow citizens in the middle of the night, when they're just celebrating a night on the town, celebrating a birthday, in fact, something is deeply wrong in the culture. And that's why President Trump is going to detail what will happen in our federal city to keep it safe, but also how to spread that throughout the rest of the country, because we know mayors like Brandon Johnson in Chicago, they like to spin the narrative. They don't like to tell people that they have a detail of him and his wife, the First Lady of Chicago, 150 sworn officers that take them off of the beat when they could be going after the criminals and the gangs in the second city. But instead, they are on there as concierge protectors of a failed mayor with a 6% approval rating across the entire city. But he would rather choose to have that, in the meantime, strike against your Second Amendment rights, tax you out of the city, and the state of Illinois as a whole. People vote not only at the ballot box, but with their feet, moving to different areas of the country, especially down here in the Southeast, where, quite frankly, it's just things are run better. They are done better, and people have their constitutional rights. And this all was spurred back during the COVID pandemic. It's an amazing time to live in this country, this golden age, and these next two agenda items, really three, crucial for this administration. Peace with Russia and Ukraine. We know that Vladimir Zelensky of the Ukraine said he will not give up land, and that President Putin does want that land. We'll see how the dealmaker-in-chief is able to really go into a situation that is near impossible, and that was ultimately caused by the lackluster Autopen administration just 4 short years ago, to making sure that China scales back. Their influence throughout the world is not that of global domination, that these trade deals, especially in Indo-Pacific, are actually working with us, like the Philippines, like Vietnam, and countless others who have come to the table to work with President Donald Trump and the United States of America, and ultimately to make our cities beautiful again. These three items might be the most difficult, quite frankly, on the list, although a southern border and everything that's poured in there, from fentanyl to the drugs and the poison, seemed impossible. But President Trump proved, as he mentioned back on March 5th, that joint session of Congress, that you simply needed just to change the president. We didn't even need legislation in the regard of just shutting it down. If Joe Biden would have done nothing, if Alejandro Mayorkas would have not touched the border and changed what the first administration did under President Trump, there would not have been the crisis that we saw and the mass killings and criminality that took place across this entire country. But we know with the ICE operations, DHS, the Attorney General, as well as FBI, all working together with state and local officials, we know that this nation is safer and that crime is going down in the major cities. And President Trump, actually, the dealmaker-in-chief himself, also sometimes the comedian-in-chief, actually putting out on True Social a rather great image saying good morning to illegal aliens. And that was with the beautiful sunshine and a special face in the middle of that gorgeous star. And that person known as Border Czar Tom Homan. So it's a frightening sight to see if you're trying to perpetuate crime in this great nation. But for the citizens and for law-abiding lovers of legal immigration, it's a beautiful sight to see. So we'll show you that in this broadcast as we wait for President Trump to hold a press conference roughly 1 hour and 15 minutes from now at 10 o'clock Eastern. So good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you. If you're just joining, I'm Robert McNeely. It's great to be back with you after some R&R in this beautiful summertime, and I hope that you're able to get a vacation or two in with your family, as we know that gas prices are the lowest they have been since July of 2021. So that was getting into what I like to call almost that second half of the COVID pandemic, pending where you lived. But it was always difficult to find a time to get out during the Autopen administration with prices going up. And we know that with egg prices, with gas prices, actually the panicans saying that inflation is destroying everything. Actually, inflation is coming down under this president and with these tariffs. Thank you to our sponsors, All Family Pharmacy. Now 25% off. You can use code RSBN10 for an extra 10% off. Code RSBN10. Get that 25% off, something very generously added to the 10% off code by Michael Kunzler, the great co-owner of All Family Pharmacy. So scan that QR code there. It's amazing to look at COVID because there's a new variant that's out there. You've also seen the terrible floods that have existed not only in Texas with the Guadalupe River. It actually just happened in Milwaukee. I drove through that the other day. It was rather frightening to see all the stormwater coming down, and the Wisconsin State Fair, other activities actually canceled in the Milwaukee area as a result of the floods that took place there. So what does this mean for life-saving medication? Well, it's good to have it all stocked up at home or on the road with you as you travel this summer. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN is your go-to online pharmacy to make sure you have life-saving medication like mebendazole, ivermectin, methylene blue, NAD+, along with 200 essential medications and antibiotics that can literally save your life from bacterial and viral infections. So RSBN10 is your code for those great savings, an additional 25% off of the 10% off at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Speaking of the Jelly Belly Pritzker, he is actually signed an executive order, as President Trump did, to go after the PBMs, insurance companies that also own these pharmacies. So there's some bipartisan consensus on that. With this online pharmacy, they did not stop. So if you order now at 8:47 Eastern, you'll get that within 24 hours with a prescription, these life-saving medications right to your door. So you don't have to worry about the pharmacy down the street that doesn't want you to have these or simply don't have it in stock. Again, ivermectin, mebendazole, now 25% off. Scan that QR code now. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN and Kalshi.com/RSBN. Your go-to on trades and bets. The most fun, in fact, if you scan the QR code there at your right-hand side of your screen. Will Elon Musk create a new political party this year? Or will he pardon anyone like the great Steve Bannon, someone who's been out there fighting hard for you and yours, getting the truth out there, just as we are doing here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. But also, baseball's getting into the dog days of summer. It's down to the wire now. Will the Los Angeles Dodgers repeat the World Series championship, or will my hometown Cubbies honor the late, great Rhino, Ryan Sandberg, number 23, as they've done over the last couple of weeks since his untimely passing, and put another one on the board a decade after their amazing victory that ended a 108-year drought, the longest in all of sports. So whether it's culture, music, sports, politics, Kalshi.com, KALSHI.com/RSBN, your go-to for trades and bets on just about anything affecting America, domestically and abroad. Kalshi.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. And in case you were on vacation like I was last week, although I keep tabs and I tune into just about everything, digesting what's going on in this world and the stories that the legacy media simply do not want you to understand or really know about, we could actually go through some recaps as President Trump has been highlighting it all over Truth Social in regards to the Purple Heart ceremony on August 7th, or even the secure border, to peace with Armenia and Azerbaijan, all leading up to today, President Trump holding a press conference at the top of the hour that will focus on keeping Washington, D.C. safe and making America's cities big, bold, and beautiful again. And we can actually toss it now to August 7th, honoring these countless brave Americans, millions who have received this beautiful Purple Heart that none other than General George Washington, before he was President of the United States, our father of this great country on August 7th, 1782, administering this great award Now, countless Americans who have gone above and beyond celebrating in all this, and many have deeply deserved this as they've put themselves on the line for their fellow countrymen. So enjoy a recap from August 7th.
Every Purple Heart tells a story of courage, sacrifice, and purpose. It speaks of a price paid for the soldier beside you, the country behind you, and the generations of Americans yet to come.
Joined the Army at 18, left, ended up in Iraq where I lost my leg.
My name is Gerald Enter. I have 3 Purple Hearts.
I served with the 1st Infantry Division in Vietnam in between 67 and 68. I got my Purple Heart in March of 68.
Wounded on the 25th of February 1991 in the Al Baghdad oil field, Operation Desert Storm.
I have earned 2 Purple Hearts in my career.
Was recipient of the Purple Heart on or about, actually December the 14th, 1970. It was not a good day for me or a lot of other folks that day.
I'm the sister of Captain Lance Peter Saigon, who was a Medal of Honor recipient for his actions in the Vietnam War.
I was wounded 29 years ago in Saudi Arabia at the bombing of Khobar Towers.
I was wounded on the 30th of May 2004 in Al Khobar, Saudi Arabia. Almost 2 million people have earned this award, and over 430,000 gave their lives. And I so appreciate what the President is doing.
Those who wear this medal ran into bullets, faced ferocious bombs, and shed their blood on the field of battle. We will never forget what they did. We will always use them as an example of bravery and courage and strength. I'll now sign the proclamation officially declaring this as National Purple Heart Day. Very special day. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
A deeply moving ceremony at the White House late last week on August 7th to commemorate from 1782 that Purple Heart, the father of our country, who honored his soldiers in battle. Did you know as well, I got to see this once at a Washington exhibit, that even the other side acknowledging King George III, in fact, that there was something about George Washington, that he was either an insane man, as His Majesty put it, or greatest man that ever lived, for willingly walking away from power. But before that, divine providence being showered upon the great father of this nation. If you look at his vests from battle, there are bullet holes just riddled all through them. Somehow he remained unharmed in countless engagements, whether it was the French and Indian War, battling valiantly as an officer for the crown, or then taking up arms to create a new nation, the constitutional republic, one for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I believe this president shares in that shielding from God, that protection of St. Michael and the archangels to watch over him as he was shielded in Butler, Pennsylvania, from an enemy. Remarkable to ponder that in this golden era. And just a day after, President Trump hosting Armenia and Azerbaijan at the White House, and their presidents, Ilham Aliyev and the 2 leaders signing a declaration of peace, coming together to end 35 years of conflict. An amazing sight to see at the White House, signing a bilateral economic agreement with the United States, unlocking the great potential of their countries in the region to trade, transit, energy infrastructure, and technology, creating new opportunities for their residents and their citizens, and for American businesses. Now, as President Trump put it, for more than 35 years, Armenia and Azerbaijan fought a bitter conflict that resulted in tremendous suffering for both countries, and a situation that brought genocide to the Christian community. Many tried to find a solution, and they were unsuccessful. With this accord, we finally succeeded in making peace. Now, as President Aliyev mentioned it's a day which will be remembered by the people of Azerbaijan with a feeling of pride and gratitude to President Trump and the American people. Within several months, he managed to put an end to conflicts in Asia, in Africa, and now in the South Caucasus. What would not be achieved in more than 30 years? We will turn the page of standoff, confrontation, and bloodshed and provide a bright and safe future for our children. And Prime Minister Pashinyan said that today we have reached a significant milestone in Armenian and Azerbaijan history and relations. We are laying a foundation to write a better story than the one we had in the past. This breakthrough would simply not have been possible without President Trump's steadfast leadership and his personal engagement to bringing a resolute peace. And President Trump is the president of peace. As president, he has brokered peace between Azerbaijan, Armenia, Cambodia, and Thailand, Israel and Iran, Rwanda, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, India and Pakistan, Egypt and Ethiopia, Serbia and Kosovo, and with the Abraham Accords dating back to the first term, and Israel really finding peace with its Muslim neighbors and Arab neighbors, peace that was once not there for years and years. President Trump is proving that nations across the globe can move beyond long-standing conflicts of the past towards a future of peace, prosperity, and hope for all of their citizens. It will be his greatest legacy. And as many have now nominated him, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Congresswoman Claudia Tenney in New York, among many other leaders domestically and internationally, this president deserves to receive in Oslo, Norway, in a star-studded way, the Nobel Peace Prize. There's no question about that because of what he's been able to do throughout the world. It's peace through strength. It's struggling and fighting for that peace in a patriotic manner. And he has written the book on it, quite frankly. We've had The Art of the Deal, The Art of the Comeback, the great memoirs of the first term, Our Journey Together, and now truly it's The Art of Peace Through Strength. Perhaps a great title for winning publishing in the near future. Thank you to our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, angelpaste.com. They are Christian owned. They hire veterans. They're out of Spring, Texas, the Houston Metroplex off of the Gulf of America. You've seen me use the original Angel Paste right here on the network, the Miracle Cream, that is filled with vitamin B. It's infused with good things. It's non-GMO, no chemicals, so you don't have to worry about that when you're putting that on your skin. Because sometimes you go to these places just down the street, even your local pharmacy, look at these lotions, and what are these fragrances? What are these things that are being put on my body, and then are they good for me? Can I absorb them? Well, you know not to worry at angelpaste.com/RSBN. There's also an orange option that is quite fantastic, and it's vitamin C infused, as well as non-GMO, no chemicals. How about an all-natural mosquito spray, something I was able to use on my trip, as well as a facial spray that will paint the town red. Whether you're a guy or a gal out there, and guys, trust me, I had some amazing fishing. We'll talk about that later on in the week, but you can actually use this and not worry about slipping with the tackle box when you have to grab it. So this is a product for guys and gals out there. Experience the miracle today at angelpaste.com. Thank you for your sponsorship on the right side of history. And now we have a new one too. It's Cove Pure. This is so important for protecting what matters. It's your health. Get $200 off of covepure.com/RSBN. That's covepure.com/RSBN. covepure.com/RSBN. Drink pure water, live pure. Once you try Cove Pure water, you're never going back. It makes your water taste so good. So do your part. Make sure you have your health intact. We know that Secretary Kennedy working hard overtime to make sure that fluoride is not in the water. So make sure that you protect the clean drinking water that really means most, that is life-giving. And if you happen to Like fluoride, that's totally fine, but you can get it through toothpaste or mouthwash, but the government should never force you to ingest it, period. So take back your right to choose and go to covepure.com/RSBN. Get $200 off this amazing system. I have a reverse osmosis myself, so something I'm very passionate about. Make sure that you go with one of the best in the business, covepure.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history as we're looking at 9 o'clock on the East Coast, 6 o'clock on the Golden Coast out west. Good morning, America. I'm Robert McNeely. If you're just tuning in with us, stay tuned. 1 hour from now, approximately, President Trump will give a press conference talking about making our federal city beautiful again. And when we were last there for the Flag Day celebration, the great military parade, if you remember about 2 months ago now, you have just sad situations. They're homeless throughout the city. Situations of defecating on the streets and needles in some cases, and then our police being overwhelmed with crime. And we know that the aptly named Big Balls, one of the brilliant minds behind Doge, was beaten to a pulp, a young man who simply wanted to serve his country and help Elon Musk in the process to really bring a spotlight on the cockroaches under those rocks of government, the big bureaucracy that chose to hide from you, the deep state, the League of Shadows. And sadly, that individual facing a terrible criminal situation. We'll stay on that story to see if justice is served there. But our cities need to be made beautiful again. Washington, D.C., as you see it there, the beautiful shot of the north lawn of the White House, it's intended to be humbling but also intimidating to foreign heads of state. It's built in such a way to honor the late great father of this country, General George Washington, our first president, as you see his memorial in the background there. One of my favorite cities. It's beloved. I love going to Washington, D.C., seeing my colleagues and friends who are working hard to make America great again. In the surrounding areas of Maryland and Virginia, one of the most beautiful areas in the entire country, well, you should feel safe to live there. It shouldn't be so expensive that you can't raise a family in these areas as well. President Trump will be addressing all of this at the top of the hour, but we know over the course of 200 plus days in office, crime is going down as a result of the great work done by his administration. What we saw last week with Governor Jelly Belly Pritzker of Illinois criticizing gerrymandering when he has the most gerrymandered maps that he signed into law back in 2021 thanks to his Democrat lobbyists and those in power. Think about that. 44% of the state voted for President Trump, yet over 83% of their representation is Democrat. 14 congressmen are Democrat, only 3 are Republican. 2 United States senators are Democrats. Why is that? It's because it's the people who are in charge picking their voters instead of the other way around as it was intended. You, the people, are supposed to choose elected representatives, but there's some in power who want it the other way. But in the meantime, as that was happening in suburban Chicago, and these anti-heroes, as I like to call them, the Texas demon rats, who ran away. First of all, too, let's just sidetrack for a moment. If you disagree with someone on something, do you just get all passive-aggressive and not confront the situation? You could do so peacefully and patriotically. You're elected to serve the people of your constituency. And they've done this 3 times now, leaving the great Lone Star State of Texas and running away. That's cowardice. There's nothing heroic about it. And you know me, I could only keep myself so far away on vacation. I was calling out people like Chairwoman Deb Conroy in DuPage County, who was with Governor Jelly Belly Pritzker, literally saying it was heroic all over social media. Deb Conroy, there's nothing heroic about people running away from their constituents and not go on the floor and argue your point. And the reason why they do this is because they know that their brand is dying. The progressive ideology. This is no longer your grandfather's Democrat Party. It's a demon rat party. They're big government socialists. That's who they are. They want to control every aspect of your life, from the tiniest thing to the larger things as well. They think they could do it better than you, the American people. They're no longer for the working class. President Trump has completely changed this Republican Party, this Big Tent philosophy, just as Ronald Reagan did back in the 1980s and even before. They have nothing to run on. And you saw Secretary Kristi Noem go to Lombard, Illinois, just west of Chicago. It's my old stomping grounds. And put proof into the pudding. And everything that's been obtained by the feds over the course of 200 plus days to make America's cities safer, because people like Brandon Johnson and Deb Conroy and J.B. Pritzker refuse to do so. And that's just the truth of the matter. And they're always welcome on the show if they want to argue their point and why they're breaking federal law and why they choose to not protect you, the citizens, the residents, the legal immigrants of this great country. Then they're more than welcome to come on Right Side Broadcasting Network and speak their piece. But we give credit where credit is due here. And if you watched Meet the Press yesterday on NBC, wow, they actually did some journalism for once and pressed Jelly Belly Pritzker on the gerrymandered maps that he made and why he is so against the legal authorization that the Texas lawmakers can do per the Texas Constitution to redraw maps. But his whole thing was, it's Donald Trump's fault. That's the easy thing to go to, I guess, for the far left demon rats. It's always Donald Trump's fault. Here's the truth in all of it. The reason they want to gerrymander in the first place is to keep their power, because they know that they will be a permanent minority party over the course of the next 20 years on the course that they're on. But also, again, like everything else, they hate the Bill of Rights. They hate the 10th Amendment. They hate states' rights. They hate the fact that the Supreme Court has said, yes, there's constitutional authority that the executive now has to end the Department of Education. And it's up to them to move forward on that. And thank you to Secretary Linda McMahon doing just that, bringing federalism, true federalism, back to the states and allowing the states to make up their minds on how they educate their children locally and at a statewide level, as was constitutionally mandated years ago before the Carter administration changed all of that. And that was an item that President Reagan, his administration, was not able to achieve. They wanted to, but this president getting right down to it with the executive order and now having the legal path cleared in order to make sure that happens. They are under the tutelage of a teachers union that chose to shut down schools completely during the pandemic. The Chicago Teachers Union, this is something that was amazing to watch when this took place. They actually told their employees, do not post your vacation photos. They had teachers going from, mind you, being paid at the time, Chicago to Hawaii for vacation. Don't post it on social media. When those single parents in Chicago, their kids needed to go to school, not only for a better life, but also many relied on those meals during the day. What about the parents who could not quit their job in order to make sure their child was not home alone in this process? Talk about the gang violence in the city of Chicago. We need serious leadership in this country, and that's what President Trump is going to address at the top of the hour, because it goes hand in hand. This education issue with the safety of our big cities. The devil loves idle hands, and we've seen that in gang culture. We've seen it in terrorist activity in this country, whether poured over the border in the form of Tren de Aragua or border cartels or MS-13 over the course of the Otto Penn administration. Or it's simply things like in Los Angeles, California with the Crips and the Bloods, or the historic gang violence in Chicago in the west and south sides. Education is the great equalizer in this country. So why would you not be for school choice? The simple opportunity to allow, regardless of socioeconomic background, regardless of zip code, for everyone in America to have that same access to a good quality education, whether it be homeschool, public, or private. The demon rats don't want you to have that. And they'll guise it in this idea that, we care about public education. They're controlled by Randy Weingartner and the teachers union at the highest level, and their lobbyists. It's a progressive movement in this country, and it's up to you in 2026 to stay on top of that and maybe run yourself or get involved in the campaign in order to keep this country great. Thank you to our sponsors here on the right side of history, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You have ivermectin, mebendazole, NAD+, methylene blue, crucial medications that can protect you and really be life-saving, along with 200 essential medications, antibiotics, emergency medical kits. Use code RSBN for that extra 10% off. Well, Michael Kunzler, the great co-owner of this fine online family organization of doctors and nurses and health experts, pharmacists, who want you and your family to be well during these summer months and beyond in 2025, has thrown on an additional 25% off. So you can have 35% in savings if you go to RSBN, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. This is really wonderful to have, especially in times like these. Stock your medicine cabinet, so important, because we've had floods throughout this country as well. And God knows when that happens and you can't get access to the pharmacy down the street, or if it's the PBM that simply is making sure that you don't get these life-saving medications. We've seen that here in America. Again, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Scan that QR code now, code RSBN10 for all the savings. And thank you as well to mypillow.com/RSBN. It's the free shipping sale. The master marketer, as President Trump put it, talking about Mike Lindell at the 100 Days ceremony back in Warren Township. That was the end of April. How quickly this year is going by. I can't believe it, especially post-campaign. It's like a whirlwind of smiles. It's Christmas every day with people standing up for our great country. Mike Lindell is one of them. Get the My Cross, saving 50% off that replica cross. There's a male version, a female version as well. My Pillow bed sheets as low as $24.98, all sizes, all colors. The multi-use My Pillow 2.0 under $10, better than any lunch deal out there, in white, pink, gray, many other colors for your viewing pleasure. And what better than to rest your head on a pillow that celebrates America, celebrates faith, celebrates the founding documents. Don't delay. Call today, 800-836-7566. Support Mike Lindell and Right Side Broadcasting Network by shopping over 2,000 items, mypillow.com/RSBN, and you save with that easy-to-remember code, RSBN, Right Side Broadcasting Network. Thank you, Mike Lindell, a great purveyor of free speech, defender of election integrity, and maybe, just maybe, future governor of Minnesota. And as these campaigns roll out, we'll have a lot of great folks here on the network to talk about 2026, the midterm. So stay tuned for that this week, next week, and the weeks to come, because some exciting people running for high office. And the most recent, I think, to announce, Senator Marsha Blackburn is going to run for governor of Tennessee. So we'll watch as all these things develop and how the MAGA agenda will truly be at the top of the ticket. Although President Trump's name won't be there, the things he's worked so hard to fight for, 20 promises made and promises kept, will be on that ballot for congressional and Senate races, as well as gubernatorial races, and of course, even this year, in an off year between city councils and school boards, also New Jersey and Virginia's gubernatorial races. We are staying close on that as we enter into the fall season and football around the corner. Also, everyone returning to school. It's getting to be somewhat of a hustle and bustle here in Auburn as everyone returns, and great to see the campus and the community alive once again. We'll take a quick commercial break. 45 minutes away. Stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network as President Trump speaks. Press conference at the top of the hour.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live Show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
Good morning, America. I'm Robert McNeely. We've been on for roughly 45 minutes. If you have not tuned in, welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. Good Monday morning, and it's a joy to be back with you after some rest and relaxation. President Trump speaks to the press at 10 o'clock, so stick with us at the top of the hour as we really highlight what's upcoming, also what's been happening over the course of an amazing week in politics. It's amazing when you take vacation, politics never necessarily sleeps, and the Democrats, especially New York, Illinois, and California, those governors, Hochul, Pritzker, and Newsom, they are amazing hypocrites, are they not? And the kings and queens of gerrymandering somehow have a problem with Texas and the way they do things. Although in the Texas Constitution, it's very clear the state legislature can proceed with the redrawing of lines. But we know that September 17th to the 19th, President Trump will be visiting the United Kingdom once again, and his office will meet with His Majesty King Charles III and Queen Camilla, Queen Consort of the United Kingdom. Look forward to that, and the First Lady Melania Trump will be on that trip. It's unprecedented because President Trump met with the late great Queen Elizabeth II, Charles' mother, in the first term, and that was a star-studded event of two extraordinary leaders. So we look forward to that visit roughly 1 month from now, so stay tuned for that during a time when the Ryder Cup will be happening, as well as fall football. This is always my favorite time of year as we get into what really is the wrap-up before the holidays, and this administration full steam ahead as you have 200 days of winning. The White House releasing how the president has really been nonstop in his agenda. President Trump celebrating just last week 200 days in the office, the second term. And if the first 100 days were historic, these last 100 plus have arguably been even more, setting an impressive precedent for future administrations, from securing trade deals and locking in massive investments for the American worker, energy dominance, and ending the woke culture. President Trump has accomplished more in his first 200 days than most administrations have over the course of their entire term. And the best is truly yet to come. Promises made back on October 12th last year during the campaign. President Trump stating we're going to have large tax cuts to workers, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Well, that promise was kept. President Trump signed the One Big Beautiful Bill into law on the 4th of July, delivering the largest tax cut in history for working Americans and middle class individuals relying on their income via tax. So no tip on tax, no tax on overtime, no tax on the Social Security, along with unprecedented tax relief for small businesses, farmers, workers, and families. Another promise made back on the same day, October 12th of last year, we will close the border. We will stop the illegal immigration invasion of our country. The U.S. reached a new monthly immigration low for illegal crossings at the southern border, including multiple months in a row with zero illegal immigrants coming over that southern border. And the Coast Guard showing aptly what they're doing at the northern border in regards to tariffs and those mentioned there with our Canadian partners if the fentanyl trade doesn't stop coming down from the north as well, something that was not reported by legacy media over the course of the Otto Penn administration. Now, the border wall construction resumed and new border barrier projects underway in El Paso and the Rio Grande Valley. We all get these bad deals, President Trump mentioned on March 9th of last year. We changed them a lot, but still plenty of them are out there. A lot of unfair deals. If the Chinese or any other country makes us pay a tariff, we will make them pay a reciprocal tariff. Well, the proof is in the pudding there. President Trump reached 8 historic trade deals with major U.S. trading partners, covering more than half of the global GDP and tariff revenues, totaling $150+ billion, keeping his promise to liberate the country from decades of failed anti-American trade policy. And on September 13th of last year, a vote for President Donald J. Trump is a vote for prosperity, as he mentioned. President Trump's America First economic policy has created a windfall in the stock market, with the S&P 500 and NASDAQ reaching record new highs several times over the course of the second 100 days in this second term. While inflation has moderated, business is booming, and the economy is looking stronger than it ever has. Egg prices falling 67% since President Trump took office on January 20th. President Trump mentioning on August 26th of last year, "I'll insist that every NATO nation must spend at least 3%. Well, we know what happened there during the NATO summit. They're at 5%. President Trump securing that deal, a historic one. Only one nation of the group, Spain, remaining out of that defense contract. This is a remarkable foreign policy feat that was long thought impossible. And we have to thank as well, give credit where credit's due, General Secretary Mark Rutte, the former Dutch Prime Minister, and he's at NATO, and he's been a big fan of President Trump, literally calling him the NATO daddy, as we saw from their joint press conferences, and then visiting President Trump at the Oval Office post the Iranian strike, and thanking him for the peace through strength, what he's done in this world, not only helping Europe fend off evildoers, but in turn protecting the Western world from threats like Iran, and doing it in such a way that's swift, that's a strike, and that places fear in the heart of enemies and respect from our friends across the world. What other nation can do that? Send in B-12 bombers and then followed by Tomahawks within the matter of minutes to strike at nuclear sites that were in violation of international law. And we're a threat to not only the Israeli people, but the American people. And we know that words matter, and that people like Dmitry Medvedev of Russia, the former president, should watch his words, as President Trump has said. We look forward to that meeting between Vladimir Putin and President Trump on Friday in Alaska to discuss peace terms. President Trump said to Medvedev, watch your words, because this country can reach just about anywhere within the matter of minutes, and that is peace through strength. Thank you to our sponsors on the right side of history, Kalshi.com/RSBN. Who will President Trump pardon this year? Will it be Steve Bannon, or will Elon Musk create that new political party, the American Party, as he's aptly named it? What say you? You can bet and trade on anything, literally anything, with Kalshi.com/RSBN. Scan that QR code now. So whether it's music, it's culture, it's sports, politics, the LA Dodgers, will they win back-to-back World Series just as the Florida Panthers won in the NHL back-to-back 2 Stanley Cups? Something not easy to do. We're getting into the dog days of summer and the Fall Classic right around the corner. So scan that QR code now. Go to Kalshi.com/RSBN and trade on the most exciting events affecting the United States of America, both domestically and abroad. If you like what you see here at the network, feel free to donate. Support us here on the right side of history. RSBnetwork.com/donate. You could text RSBN to 801-801. That's RSBN to 801-801. We humbly ask for your support as we're up against legacy corporations who have been doing this for a long time. We've been in the game for about a decade, bringing you these great Trump rallies when no one else wanted to. Well, that's changed the entire ball game with this new media, and it's good to see all the voices that are out there. You see images from the campaign last year and President Trump greeting National Guard. It was the highlight of my career in so many ways, and for countless others to engage with you, the American people, to get the reasons why you would stand out there for hours. And as you see our Vice President, all smiles with his trip to the United Kingdom recently. We are now your go-to live desk. You could also do this the old-fashioned way if you're not on the computer or just prefer to send in a check. Go 1550, that's 1550, Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. 1550, Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, in the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. And maybe in that letter you want to just add a quick Go Tigers or War Eagle as we're getting into the fall football season. Thank you for your support here at Right Side Broadcasting Network as we bring you all of this unbridled access to your 47th President, 50th Vice President, and the 119th Congress in this golden era as we're breaking down 200 days of victory for this administration and in turn for the entire country. Something both Republicans and Democrats, independents, everyone can get behind unless you're Mom Donnie in New York City, the big government socialist, the communist who wants to literally control your farmer's market. One of the most inexpensive things you can enjoy in New York City, an already expensive city that never sleeps. Wow, but he sure is enjoying his capitalist dental work. There's some of the whitest, most beautiful teeth I've ever seen at 33 years young. But my fellow millennial wants to control everything there. It's an amazing sight to see as we are in the off-year elections going into the midterms. Well, let's throw it to the GOAT of press secretaries. If you don't follow her MAGA Minute, you should, so you catch all those highlights on a weekly basis coming from this great administration.
200 days of winning, and we are just getting started. Let's break it all down in this week's MAGA Minute. As usual, President Trump spent the week answering an unprecedented number of questions from the press, even on the roof, on Squawk Box, and everywhere in between. President Trump signed an executive order establishing a White House task force on the 2028 Summer Olympics, which will take place in Los Angeles, California. The president signed a presidential memorandum directing the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, to require higher education institutions receiving federal financial assistance to be transparent regarding their admissions practices. No more DEI admissions. Tim Cook visited the White House to announce billions more dollars in investments in America. That means more jobs for you and your family. The administration also hosted 100 Purple Heart recipients at the White House to celebrate their incredible sacrifices to our country. The president wrapped up the week by securing a historic peace deal, yet another one, between Armenia and Azerbaijan, ending a decades-long conflict that has killed thousands of people. Also this week, Nancy Pelosi doubled down on the Democrats' desire to mutilate the private parts of our nation's innocent children. HHS announced plans to cut Medicare and Medicaid to any hospital that provides what they call this barbaric practice, gender-affirming care. The Department of Agriculture this week brought the whole cabinet together to celebrate the Great American Farmers Market on the National Mall, reaffirming the Trump administration's commitment to our agricultural community and our farmers. And the president also signed an executive order ensuring fair access to banking for all Americans, putting an end to the debanking practice that we have seen weaponized against Americans based on their political beliefs. I hope you're not tired of winning yet. Tune in next week for another jam-packed MAGA Minute.
And thank you to Caroline Levitt, the GOAT of White House press secretaries, breaking it down for you. Good to see those videos out there, and conservatives really being taught how to fight back in this process by none other than President Trump over the course of the last decade, especially the use of social media to get that message out there. And that's why new media voice is so important, but also like, share, and subscribe so you can get that out there to your friends, or send the MAGA Minute over to those who simply have their head in the sand. But all of those successes that you just heard from Caroline herself, also the job-killing regulations that took place over the Auto Pen administration, President Trump stating on October 10th of last year during the campaign, to reduce costs for both manufacturers and customers, I will remove 10 old regulations for every new regulation. Trump killing federal regulations at a 10-to-1 rate tops the first term's 4-to-1 cut. So they're at that rate right now. Anytime there's a new regulation, let's cut 10 of them, if at all possible. And that's a breakneck pace. And that's something that, I harp a lot about, but President Reagan spoke on this very issue, that the closest thing to eternal life in America, in the world, is a government program. And we've seen that with big government socialism since the institution of the federal income tax in 1913. It was when big government senators, the so-called progressives of the turn of the century, went down to Jekyll Island in Georgia and really concocted a plan to create a new big bloated Federal Reserve, a central bank that was really never even intended by our founding fathers. In fact, not the same kind of central bank that they wanted. Alexander Hamilton, the late great Secretary of the Treasury, the inaugural holder of that position, and close confidant and advisor to the father of our country, George Washington, he advocated for that strong centralized government in the halls of the federal city. But even he, by all his Federalist writings, by his contributions to this great country, would be rolling in his grave at the size of the scope of this League of Shadows deep state government that has dominated our American ethos and our way of thinking. I mean, arguably back to 1913 and the institution of the federal income tax. The fact that this administration focused on streamlining the size and scope of government is rather remarkable. And that's why you have the demon rats screaming like they are, because their amoeba, in order for it to survive, is the collective. They don't care about the individual. It's been made very clear. They turn the other cheek when people die of fentanyl poisoning. They turn the other cheek when children are murdered, whether at their college campus or as minors by illegal immigrants. They could not stand for DJ Daniel, who has survived brain cancer, who is still fighting that great fight, who was sworn in as an honorary Secret Service agent by the director, Sean Curran. They could not stand. Think about that. Sad that they are on their way to a permanent minority, and you need multiple parties or a strong two-party system. You may have different views on that per respective viewer, and that dialogue can happen, but you never want one-party rule. That's not good for a system. We only see that in totalitarian states. You need checks and balances. But you have a major American party who is going down the path of political suicide because, as Caroline mentioned it, they want to chop off the private parts of minors. How is that even like a normal political position to have? This was once a party that was demos, Greek, that root being for of the people. Think about people like John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Think about people that started the party. Andrew Jackson, who was up against, in 1828, an entrenched New England Republican establishment that was surrounding itself with power and banks, using the banking system to really take advantage of low-income earners. That party is gone. It's now a big government, socialist, progressive, communist leaning entity that's extraordinarily anti-Semitic. And shame on people like Palestinian Senator Chuck Schumer, who can't stand up and call out by name people like Mamdani, who will destroy the greatest city in the world. Just food for thought on this Monday as we go into this golden era of promises made, promises kept by your 45th and 47th President of the United States. Thank you to our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. It's ivermectin, it's hydrochloroquine, it's mebendazole, it's NAD+, methylene blue, also 200 essential medications, emergency medical kits, and antibiotics that can save you and yours in a disaster. I just drove through Wisconsin the other day, and historic flooding outside of Milwaukee. I was more close to the Madison area, coming through the central heart of the Badger State. But those are some crazy storms. What if you're in the middle of a flood, like the terrible situation in Texas, the Guadalupe River, and you survive all that, and your medicine cabinet is not stocked up, but you can't get to your pharmacy because of the hazards, because of the cancellations. The Wisconsin State Fair was just canceled. So it's good to have these life-saving medications on hand or with you to travel. Very easy to take on the road during your summer vacations. Ivermectin and bendazole now an additional 25% off to the extra 10% off with code RSBN10. So you're looking at 35% of savings thanks to Michael Kunzler, the great co-owner of All Family Pharmacy. It's doctors, nurses, and healthcare providers, pharmacists who care about you, who are true patriots, and it is $9.36 on the East Coast, $6.36 on the West Coast. If you order right now, in 24 hours with a prescription, you'll get these life-saving medications right to your door. So allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, pushing against the PBMs, just like President Trump did with that executive order, and even has bipartisan consensus. J.B. Pritzker signed that in Illinois recently. But allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN has been fighting hard for that on a daily basis. Scan that QR code there and get the life-saving medication that you need. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And we also like to thank Mr. Director, that sponsor one more time, angelpaste.com. We love angelpaste.com. It is something you've seen me use here on the network, the original Miracle Cream. So it has the vitamin B infused, non-GMO, no chemicals, and it gets your hands glowing and beautiful. Just got to double check if mine are glowing and beautiful today, because I did not use it today, but I normally do use it. And it is quite fantastic to get rid of the dry skin, eczema, anything that bothers you, especially during those dry weather periods. And you never like to shake someone's hand and then it's all crackled and ugly skin. Angelpaste.com there to protect all of that. They are Christian owned, and they are based out of Spring, Texas, the Houston Metroplex, off the Gulf of America. So the orange option, too, has vitamin C in it, also non-GMO, no chemicals, an all-natural mosquito repellent, and a facial spray that the guys and gals can use. And guys, let me tell you out there, I'm a proud user of this product because you can still grip that tackle box in the fishing season. And I know that right around this time of year, they call it the dog days of August, although I caught dozens last week, and I'm very proud of that. But as you go on and enjoy the rest of your fishing season, make sure you have angelpaste.com there with you. Experience the miracle today. And thank you for the sponsorship on the right side of history. And that's what's so special about this network and the new media. We are sponsored by great American companies. We are sponsored by people who share those same values as you. And I saw a recent debate over this. Do you really want this company canceled? No, we want everyone to have their fair share of the public square to advocate for what they believe in. Of course, it's freedom. That's what matters here in America. But shouldn't you be putting your dollars, or don't you want to put the dollars towards companies that actually care about you, your health, the Bill of Rights, our founding documents, your bodily autonomy, the family? That's what's so cool about being with the new media, to stand up to legacy media items and to do it a better way with great companies, especially those like angelpaste.com. As you look at Live Look now, the James S. Brady briefing room in the White House. We are expecting President Trump, and you see it there, the American flag, the seal of the President of the United States, and the presidential flag as well. So an up-close event for our media, the White House press pool, to enjoy this Monday morning with President Donald Trump. And he posted on Truth Social just how important this moment is, this press conference, to safely secure America and our big cities. This is something that is really remarkable because he doesn't always specify a specific time when it comes to a press conference. But as he put on Truth Social, the press conference on crime and beautification will begin tomorrow. This is just yesterday at 10 a.m. Eastern, so stay tuned for this 20 minutes from now in the press briefing room, and it will not only involve ending the crime, murder, and death in our nation's capital, but it will also be about cleanliness and the general physical renovation and condition of our once beautiful and well-maintained capital. We're not going to allow people to spend $3.1 billion on fixing up a building like the Federal Reserve, which could be done in a far more elegant and time-sensitive manner for $50 to $100 million. Renovation would have actually been better, and we would have saved $3 billion. Traffic jams, never-ending construction. The mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, is a good person who has tried, but she has given many chances, and the crime numbers get worse, and the city only gets dirtier and less attractive. The American public is not going to put up with it any longer. Just like I took care of the border, where he had 0 illegals coming across last month from millions in the year before, I will take care of our cherished capital, and we will make it truly great again. Before the 10 squatter filth and crime, it was the most beautiful city in the country. As President Trump says, see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. That's 19 minutes from now. And I have to tell you, on this Monday morning, it puts a big smile on my face, which actually I think instills much fear into illegal immigrants, as President Trump also sharing on Truth Social a great montage, if you will, a celebration of border czar Tom Homan just saying good morning to the illegal aliens on the border wall. Something extraordinarily entertaining. If we do have that ready, Mr. Director, to toss to a video that might put a smile on your face on this Monday morning.
Now, I'm going to say, if you're in the country illegally, you shouldn't feel comfortable. Absolutely not. I won't feel comfortable if I'm in the country illegally. If I'm in some other country illegally, I'm not going to be comfortable. You shouldn't be comfortable either, because when you enter this country illegally, you have committed a crime. You are a criminal.
And this press team, the communications office at the White House, they need a raise. I'm not sure exactly what they do make, but I'm sure that's public record being that they're government employees. But they are creative, and many of them coming from the private sector, and they know how to, like President Trump does, put some comedy into it, and in turn getting a point across, as President Trump did on the campaign trail. If you remember the snake poem, well, he addressed that again with the amazing footage of what our Border Patrol, our state and local officials, as well as ICE, they put themselves in harm's way every day, and we should be thanking God for their selfless service to this nation. Remember, a snake, if it looks like a snake, it acts like a snake, it's a snake, as we're reminded by President Trump.
On her way to work one morning, down the path along the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-frozen snake. His pretty-colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. "Poor thing," she cried, "I'll take you in, and I'll take care of you. Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed that vicious snake. She wrapped him up, all cozy, in a comforter of silk, and she laid him by the fireside with some honey and some milk. She hurried home from work that night. As soon as she arrived, she found that pretty snake she'd taken in had been revived. "Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed that vicious snake. She clutched him to her bosom. "You're so beautiful," she cried, "but I hadn't brought you in by now. You know you would have died." She stroked his pretty skin again and kissed and held him tight. But instead of saying thank you, the snake gave her a vicious bite. "Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed that vicious snake. "I saved you," cried the woman, "and you bit me, but why? You knew your bite was poisonous, and now I'm going to die." "Shut up, silly woman," said the reptile with a grin. "You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in."
And I could care less if it's a Catholic bishop or a Protestant pastor, or anyone who's claiming that this is somehow an overreach. No, this is the enforcement of law against those who would seek to inflict criminal, illegal harm onto residents and our citizens of all socioeconomic backgrounds, demographics. It doesn't matter. Thank you to DEA, ICE, Border Patrol, our state and local enforcement that put themselves in harm's way to make America great again, and really to serve the public at large. And again, on this network, as many common sense Americans believe, Republican, Democrat, Independent, or otherwise, we all advocate for legal immigration in this country. And now people actually have an opportunity to do that and not go through this trafficking system in an open border that poured in fentanyl and crime and drugs. It's a really amazing thing, the work they do every day on a selfless basis to secure this great nation. Thank you to our sponsors on the right side of history. If we're not aware, Utah, Florida actually signing bills into law, their governors banning fluoride. They just passed bills recently because it's found in the water supply. CovePure.com/RSBN, one of the amazing companies that's fighting this. You can get $200 off now by ordering one of these, and really every home in America should have this. RFK Jr. has been warning us about fluoride and poisons in the water for a long time now, and years ago people calling him crazy over it. Well, many of the things he's brought up have been proven to be true, especially when it comes to fluoride contamination. There was a study recently done by JAMA Pediatrics, one of the top medical journals, and scientists found that fluoride levels over 2 milligrams per liter of water cause more than a 2-point drop in children's IQ scores. One of the reasons I actually had thyroid cancer was because potentially too much fluoride exposure. The thyroid likes to consume fluoride, and that's why we're proud to partner with Cove Pure, because it's a water filtration system that sits on your countertop. It's easy, it's not in the way, and it's right there for you to get those harmful contaminants out of your drinking water. Their ClearWave technology is certified to remove up to 99.9% of impurities in your water, anything that's not water. And we're mostly made up of water. That's our essence, our being. This world is over, 70% H2O. That's why our skies are blue. That's why you need this on a daily basis to protect you and yours in your home. CovePure.com/RSBN. Once you have Cove Pure water, you will never go back to the fluoride and the contaminated water that could harm you. So CovePure.com/RSBN. Get $200 off now of this amazing system. I have a system at my residence as well, and you should too. CovePure.com/RSBN. And thank you to MyPillow.com/RSBN, the master marketer, as President Trump put it, at the 100-day celebration. The free shipping sale, My Cross, save 50% off. A male and female version of the My Cross that Mike Lindell proudly displays every day. And we know that it was the Lord's inspiration that led to this great American company. My Pillow bed sheets, all sizes, all colors, $24.98. The multi-use My Pillow 2.0. Hey, the 1.0 changed my sleeping pattern for the better. I can't wait for the 2.0. Now $9.98. That's better than any lunch deal down the street. Call today. Don't delay. 800-836-7566. Support Mike Lindell and Right Side Broadcasting Network by shopping now at mypillow.com/RSBN. Save with code RSBN. Thank you, Mike Lindell, a great purveyor of free speech and defender of election integrity. We are huge fans here of you at the network, sir, and always a pleasure to see you on the road as we are getting ready about 10 minutes away from President Trump's address to the White House pool in the James S. Brady briefing room, where you normally see Caroline Leavitt, the GOAT of press secretaries, doing her weekly or even some cases daily press conferences for those there in Washington, D.C., and always good to see our friends and colleagues who are working hard as well within the Beltway, as we are outside the Beltway here in the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama. President Trump also mentioning on True Social this press conference in another Truth Social post that we're having a news conference tomorrow. This was yesterday in the White House. I'm going to make our Capitol safer and more beautiful than it has ever been before. The homeless have to move out immediately. We will give you places to stay, but far from the Capitol. The criminals, you don't have to move out. We are going to put you in jail where you belong. It's all going to happen very fast, just like the border. It went from millions pouring in to zero over the last few months. This will be easier. Be prepared. There will be no Mr. Nice Guy. We want our Capitol back. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And there were pictures of that shared with that Truth Social post from yesterday evening. Now, on our recent visit during Flag Day, the big, beautiful memorial parade that celebrated America's 250 years of our Army. You see that right there with the credit to @RealDonaldTrump on Truth Social. Mr. Producer and I just walking throughout the city, and not too far from the actual site on Constitution Avenue. Well, there were some scary sights of just, it's horrible to see, whether it's mental illness, drug addiction, but plenty of homeless throughout Chinatown, to literal on the wall defecating that had taken place. No one has to live like that in big city America. So I'm looking forward to what might be announced here by the President of the United States, whether it's the reopening of insane asylums. And that was something that Vice President J.D. Vance was very clear on in a recent interview. Something that President Reagan was actually wrong on was closing those prematurely. There are some mental health institutions that must be reopened or remain opened for law and order, and to get these people the dignity of life that they deserve, the mental health that they deserve, because quite frankly, this is a country that is over-medicated. This is a country that self-medicates in a way that can be unhealthy at times, whether it is with prescription medication, with hallucinogenics, with illegal drugs, or otherwise. And that includes legal remedies like alcohol as well. And that's why it was so important to keep churches and gyms open and be with family and friends, something that the demon rats wanted to close down and instill fear during the pandemic, something that Americans don't need. And I care less if it's a controversial opinion, it is, but I believe in it because I feel like the proof is in the pudding. What matters on a daily basis to create healthy living in this country? It's community, it's faith, it's family, it's having the dignity of work. It's very biblical when you break it all down, and there are forces out there, the League of Shadows, that would so choose otherwise. And I'm very excited to see what this president has to offer today, roughly 7 minutes from now. So we'll take you right there to the James S. Brady briefing room as President Trump will hold a press conference. And it's 200 plus days of extraordinary success. Now, he pledged in these Truth Social posts that it will be criminals going to jail, as I just mentioned a moment ago. Also, those getting the mental health that they do need, and ultimately serving our veterans. Because sadly, a lot of homeless happens to be in our veteran community, and suicide as well, because of the sad things that they go through. And we went off the top of the hour with that Purple Heart video from last week, August 7th, 1782, marking that anniversary, where the father of our country, the great general and our first president, George Washington, bestowing that honor upon those who go above and beyond in their acts of service and their military duty, beyond the call of duty, and in many cases laying down their lives for their fellow soldiers and their fellow countrymen. And there you see the GOAT, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, among the other press and communications staff, offering up what will take place today. I'm sure many details of what the president is going to speak on, and this will be one for the ages, I think. So get your popcorn ready and enjoy what's going to be a press conference to change the face of this constitutional republic and its big cities. We have seen so much crime and so much homelessness, and really the failure of demon rat leadership in some cases for nearly an entire century in our big cities that have harmed those residents. And In some cases, it wasn't necessarily easy, but I got up and left for better career opportunities. Not everyone can leave the big cities, and they have to stay there, whether it's family or job obligations. And no one should fear having to get up and going to a job in the morning, regardless of their zip code in America. And this is, as President Reagan talked about, the biblical battle. Washington, D.C. being that shining city on the hill, the federal city. It was intended as such to humble and to welcome foreign heads of state, to really show that the greatest political power in the Western world, the greatest home field advantage, is right there in the White House at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, as it should be. So it doesn't look good when you have people who are addicted lying on the streets, not able to grant shelter, something that's needed to conduct your daily business. And this president will have an all-hands-on-deck approach to that, whether it be from public entities to private entities, churches to local law enforcement. This president focused on what will make America ultimately safe again. Thank you to our sponsors here on the right side of history. A great way to make America healthy again, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN for ivermectin, mebendazole, methylene blue, NAD+, and the 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits. They can make a massive difference for you and yours. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Ivermectin, mebendazole, now 25% off. There's also that extra 10% off using code RSBN10, as we regularly interview and discuss with our friend Michael Kunzler, the wonderful co-owner of this fine organization. So use code RSBN10 to get that extra 10% off. You're looking at a savings of 35% off thanks to the owners at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And with all the floods and natural disasters that take place, as well as the PBMs out there, insurance companies that own pharmaceutical entities, you never know when you won't have access to these things. So it's good to stock up that medicine cabinet, good to travel with them. You could do all of that with allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Thank you to our sponsors here on the right side of history, as would be very honored to have your dollars to keep going in this battle. Now, a decade into this, peacefully and patriotically bringing you the greatest rallies of all time. A president unlike any other who came down a golden escalator with our lovely First Lady, Melania Trump, at a property he built in Manhattan, the Trump Tower, to say, you know what, I'm going to do this better. I'm going to secure the border. I'm going to make the American dollar worth something again. I'm going to do this job better than my predecessors. And he's, I think, proven that case time and time again, as he will today at the top of the hour. Support us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network as your go-to live desk, rsbnetwork.com/donate, or text RSBN to 801-801. If you don't like using the computer, or you just like that old school way of doing things, we have an address as well to send checks into at 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6. It's Box 344, 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. The loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Thank you for your sponsorship and protection of American values and your go-to live desk, bringing you access to your 47th president, your 50th vice president, and your 219th or 119th Congress. Maybe we make it to the 219th Congress, as we're in this America 250 celebration, and it looks like a jam-packed room there at the James S. Brady briefing room at the White House, 1 minute away from the scheduled press conference of President Donald Trump to address what's happening with the safety of our big cities, especially Washington, D.C., place where Muriel Bowser, he put it, she's a good lady, which I think President Trump is actually being very generous there. I think she's an absolute moron, perhaps one of the worst mayors in the history of this country. She's someone who did not sign off on the National Guard President Trump wanted to authorize. Kash Patel, the FBI director, was there as senior counsel, if you can remember, as President Trump, 48 hours before J6, wanted to send in that extra security per the intel reports. And Muriel Bowser Mayor of D.C. and then Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, they needed to sign off on that per law, per the federal city regulations and the laws that are put on the books. They both refused and then did not take responsibility until Nancy Pelosi's daughter actually caught that. She's a documentary filmmaker, and her mother actually telling the truth in her suburban caravan. Maybe it was when she was not at the bar, but we know that Nancy Pelosi has really a gentle relative relation with the truth. It's rare that we ever get her to actually answer honestly on a plethora of many issues, but we know that that was her fault. That was Muriel Bowser's fault, and it's time now, especially for young Republicans. They just had their National Federation meeting in Nashville, Tennessee, and I hope this was discussed. Many of you live in the big cities, whether it's millennials or Gen Zers. Instead of the goofy, let's go scream on the lakefront in Chicago and get all our pent-up energy, and my parents' generation, my grandparents' generation didn't have it as hard as we did. That's a bunch of BS. But regardless of that, run for office. Get these demon rats out of these big cities. They've destroyed our cities over the course of 80, 90 years. These shining cities on the hill that were centers and beacons for industry and for tech and for Hollywood and for the American industrial base. The city of broad shoulders, my hometown in Chicagoland, all the way throughout that Rust Belt going into Ohio and the home state, the Buckeye state of J.D. Vance. It's now our turn as a generation to take up the reins and mantles of leadership, regardless of where you live, but especially in the big cities. It's time for the Republican Party to stop thinking so narrowly and to start putting on a thinking cap, perhaps a red MAGA cap, like that of President Trump, who wasn't looking at, where are the political winds swifting and swaying like his predecessor, Bill Clinton, did aptly in the 90s. It's about taking strong leadership, coming down a golden escalator and saying, no, enough is enough. We're going to stop the crime, first of all, by securing the border, in turn, then using tariffs to bring national sovereignty back to this country, and also an unbridled amount of wealth, the wealth that we saw in the late 19th century with the blue ribbon commissions prior to the federal income tax of 1913 and the modern progressive movement. It's now your turn. It's our time to do that as millennials and Gen Z residents, citizens of this great nation. So be not afraid as you seek to serve. I firmly believe in this life that no successful life can go without some form of public service, whether that's with private charity, to running for office, to even volunteering on a campaign. It's the most fun you'll ever have, I'm telling you. Done it a couple of times myself, and yes, it's stressful. Yes, it adds hours to your days and nights, but you make some of the best friends. You actually meet your neighbors, going door to door and knocking them and really breaking bread, and that's what our founders envisioned nearly 250 years ago, that you would go for a short period of time, serve your common man from all different backgrounds, whether it's from agriculture, being a farmer, to a lawyer, to doctors and dentists, movie stars, to those in entertainment. And as President Trump joked around with his great medical team, well, it's amazing. We all had great television shows, and it's almost as if that totally disqualifies what we had done in the past, even though those shows would showcase their abilities in the business world, in the medical field, like President Trump did with The Apprentice, and like Dr. Oz did with his wonderful show, to get the truth out there. Because sadly, we've been lied to by a legacy media. We've been lied to by those who took over pharmaceuticals, dating back to Rockefeller and Standard Oil. And it was once all a conspiracy theory, but you can actually look these things up, and now with our access to carrying these things around, you can actually take time and study these issues quicker than ever before. And granted, yes, there's a lot of misinformation out there, but that's why we're here to exist for you, to give you this unbridled access to your government that you put into place on November 5th of last year, so that you can make up your mind. Because regardless of political affiliation, Republican, Democrat, Independent, We know our viewers have common sense and believe in making America great again, which is an inclusive movement, which is bigger than just the name Trump. And even President Trump has talked on that on countless occasions. It's not about me, it's about this movement. Personal discussions with the man. He said it's not about what I did, it's about us. And it's remarkable to have that kind of leadership and that focus, a commander-in-chief who actually talks to the future generations, and when he speaks to young people, especially students, almost every speech I've seen him do when it's a younger audience, it's some of you here, and this is including the University of Alabama at the commencement way back on May 1st. Many of you might be standing here one day, and I'm providing a path where it could be one that is prosperous as we go into another 250 years of this great country. If you're just joining us now, welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network's Live Desk. I'm Robert McNeely. Always a joy to be with you, especially after a vacation, and especially on a day like today, this Monday, August 11th, 2025, which every day is historic in the second term of the Trump White House. But this will be a press conference that is a game changer. This president now focused on not only his 20 promises that became Republican National Committee policy in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in July of last year at the convention after the terrible assassination attempt which took the life of Corey Campitor, great hero firefighter who shielded his family in that moment, something that should never happen at any political rally in America. They should always be peaceful and patriotic regardless of what is being advocated for. But this president, as I see it, really has three main issues left as he's succeeded in countless others, including securing the border, bringing back billions for America, trade deals, peace through countries that have been at odds for generations. Now it's really putting China up against the ropes, as they've done with the tariff program and with the new trade deals, but also Russia and Ukraine, a meeting that will be taking place in Alaska between President Trump and President Putin on August 15th, this Friday. But also this, making America's cities beautiful again. And he will do that regardless of the demon rat leadership that has, from Muriel Bowser in D.C. to Brandon Johnson in Chicago. It's unacceptable. Karen Bass in Los Angeles. We saw that early on in the term with the Pacific Palisades homes burning to the ground, and that she needed a mandated 7-day regulation per code. President Trump said, just let them back in. It's their property. There's nothing left. That was the difference in leadership styles. And President Trump is ensuring that this federal city will be beautiful again, as well as all of America's cities, with these new programs and what he'll be rolling out today. Thank you to our sponsors here on the right side of history, Kalshi.com/RSBN. Who will be President Trump's pardon this year? Will he do it at all? Well, Steve Bannon is on that list, and he's one that has suffered for just getting the truth out there. And like many others, many in the cabinet now. Think about Tulsi Gabbard at DNI. She was spied on. Think about Peter Navarro went to jail because he wanted to push pro-populist policies that actually protect the middle class. It's an amazing thing to see as Elon Musk now wants to make a third party. Do you think he'll do it? The American Party, as he's aptly named it. Scan that QR code now. Trade on anything as we get in the dog days of summer and the Fall Classic right around the corner. Will the Los Angeles Dodgers repeat the World Series championship? Or will my Chicago Cubs make a late push? As we'd love to see that. Really America's team. Well, there's a few of those out there, but love my Cubbies. It would be fun to see them do that. But those Florida Panthers, President Trump's team, his hockey team down in the free Sunshine State, they went back-to-back with that Stanley Cup. So it can happen. It's tough to do, but we'll see if the Dodgers are able to do that. So regardless of sports, culture, music, or media and politics, trade on anything. Kalshi.com/RSBN. Thank you to angelpaste.com/RSBN as well. Angelpaste.com is your go-to miracle cream. You've seen me use it here on the network. They are Christian-owned, and they hire veterans. So all their products, non-GMO, no chemicals, good stuff for the summertime as well, especially that mosquito repellent, and it's natural, as well as the facial spray They're in the Gulf of America, so they know a thing or two about those humid climates, especially, again, in these dog days of summer. 10 minutes after the top of the hour, experience the miracle at angelpace.com. Thank you for your sponsorship on the right side of history. And we are looking at a live shot now, the James S. Brady briefing room, as President Trump will hold a press conference scheduled for 10 o'clock. 10 minutes ago, we know he has a busy schedule. He's been nonstop around the clock, and somehow he still finds a way to win 2 club championships at Bedminster and in Westchester at his lovely golf courses, as well as a great time in Scotland for that meeting overseas with the UK Prime Minister and the First Minister of Scotland. Really a winning success across the board, as well as peace deals. The man works around the clock, and there really is no one else quite like him to do this job. And as he's mentioned, who will be that heir apparent to MAGA, and recently rolling out the plans and the ideas for the LA Summer Games in 2028, making sure that no men are in women's sports for one. He mentioned that, yeah, it's likely J.D. Vance, the great 50th vice president, to take up that mantle, but Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, also throwing his hat in the ring for Vice President J.D. Vance to lead that ticket. But President Trump saying, yeah, Marco would be great too. There's a lot of great people that are up on this stage. When he was in the studio that they had created for the auto pen, looks a lot nicer with the threads of capitalism and freedom and common sense, as President Trump was awarded with the 1984 medals, the last time they had the Summer Games in Los Angeles. So an extraordinary time. That was during the Reagan years. To see that come back to the City of Angels, and should be a star-studded event in what will be the last few months of President Trump's term, which is sad to think about. So let's enjoy these early months and weeks and 200-plus days of this second term, which has been really moved faster than any other modern administration, and fixing the problems of the living predecessors. I speak on it a lot, but it's very clear now, thanks to social media and thanks to President Trump pulling back the curtain, that unequivocally Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Hussein Obama, and the auto pen all put this country in true danger with their never-ending wars, with their neoliberal and neocon policies, with the workplace violence. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton have been subpoenaed by this House investigation on the Epstein files. And there's 2 ways of looking at this, and I respect both opinions. You have Senator Rand Paul, who has said for a long time that Bill Clinton is a sexual predator. He harassed a White House intern. And granted, she was an adult. She was 22 years old. But think about that. The President of the United States going after a young woman who was not much older than his daughter, who was living under the same roof. Megyn Kelly sees it slightly different, someone I have great respect for as well. That, she had a decision in it. And yes, she did, Ms. Lewinsky. But we know now the way the federal government harassed her in that process, that some in the FBI sought to intimidate the entire family. And it ruined her life, it ruined her career. All because of the perverted actions of someone who went to Epstein's Island at least 28 times via the Lolita Express, which then, as the sitting president, would have been Air Force One. Look forward to this Justice Department getting to the bottom of that story, and we will stay on it wherever the crumbs lead, wherever it does, because that's what it's all about in the media, is shedding a light on those in power, because they owe the truth to you, the American people. You employ these people. It's a very cornerstone of this great nation. It's a constitutional republic, democracy in action. They are beholden to you. Sometimes they forget about that. And perhaps Tish James, the AG attorney, or the Attorney General of New York, or Senator Adam Shifty Schiff, now under investigation for mortgage fraud, the same thing they wanted to bring against President Trump, and simply were using lawfare in the process. So liberty and justice for all. We look forward to where all these weeks and months will lead us into this extraordinary 2025, one year that is very, very memorable for a number of reasons. Thank you to our sponsors here on the right side of history, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, ivermectin, mebendazole, hydrochloroquine, and NAD+, methylene blue, as well as many life-saving medications, 200 essential, in fact, with emergency medical kits and antibiotics. Use code RSBN10 for that extra 10% off, but it's now 25% off for ivermectin and mebendazole, thanks to Michael Kunzler, the great co-owner of this fine organization. So scan the QR code there and look at your options. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, your go-to for essential health and medication, as those PBMs, they will not go quietly into the night. Insurance, think about this, insurance companies actually double dipping and running the pharmacies are not allowing you access to these great life-saving medications. Well, President Trump and All Family Pharmacy want to make sure that that's not the case. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN and covepure.com/RSBN. Let's get $200 off of this great machine that sits on your countertop, because we know JAMA pediatricians actually did a study on all of this, and doctors found that the fluoride content in the water is truly at an unhealthy level. So it backs up the claims from Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. that fluoride and other pesticides and chemicals in your water should not be there, quite frankly. And this machine will take out 99.9% of all of those harmful substances. So covepure.com/RSBN. It is your go-to for healthy drinking water, something all of us should have. I mean, truly, it's a human right. You hear the demon rats always speaking about human rights and then making them up willy-nilly. Well, people should have access to clean, pure water. And you could do that with protecting what matters most in your home. Drink pure, live pure. covepure.com/RSBN. Get $200 off now with this great company and this great device. I have one myself. It's important to make sure that you're doing what's good for your body. You don't want fluoride in your water. You should have that option. If you want to drink that, go right for it. Go to the tap if you like to. We know that some people drink right out of the hose outside, especially during these warm summer months, but you should have the option to not consume that. covepure.com/RSBN. Thank you for your sponsorship on the right side of history as we await President Trump holding a press conference soon on this important moment, making Washington, D.C. clean again, healthy again, enjoyable again, as it should be. President Trump posting on Truth Social this press conference announcement that he'd be having today, and this was just yesterday. Rarely do you have the president actually stating that he'll have a press conference, but as he did via Truth Social, the beautification press conference in the press briefing room will not only involve ending the crime, murder, and death in our nation's capital, but will also be about cleanliness and the general physical renovation and condition of our once beautiful and well-maintained capital. We are not going to allow people to spend $3.1 billion on fixing up a building like the Federal Reserve, which could have been done in a far more elegant and time-conducive manner, time-sensitive manner, not the $50 to $100 million. It could have been done in a much simpler way. The renovation would have actually been better, and we would have saved $3 billion, traffic jams, and never-ending construction. Mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, is a good person who has tried, but she has been given many, many chances. And the crime numbers get worse, and the city only gets dirtier and less attractive as days go on. The American people not going to put up with this any longer. Just like I took care of the border, I will, where you had zero illegals coming across from month to month, millions in the year before, I will take care of our cherished capital, and we will make it truly great again. So we look forward to all of that happening before the tents and the squatters and all of the mess that was in Washington, D.C., you had a shining city on a hill. And President Trump is ready to do that again, just as President Reagan spoke of now 40 plus years ago, and how important all of that was to attracting people, because that's what Washington, D.C. is about. It's literally designed not only to honor George Washington and the early founders, but to be something that is humbling and intimidating to heads of state, so they can actually dialogue and discuss. It's the greatest home field advantage in all of Western politics, if not the world, especially American politics. It's right there at that podium, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and the executive authority per Article 2 of the Constitution, and what this president can and cannot do. Something the Democrats like to pontificate about on a daily basis, but whether it's going through Article 1 and Section 7 of Clause 2 regarding the 25th Amendment of the Constitution, or regarding the sovereign immunity and powers that the president has and the executive authority in securing the borders, it's worth taking a look at. Once again, if you have a pocket constitution, I always carry mine in my bag, but it's a nation that is under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we're seeing that play out on a daily basis as the investigators now become the investigated. And all those who would seek to usurp the authority of this constitutionally and duly elected president and then try to prevent him from obtaining a second term, they might be going to prison in the future. We'll see what happens with all of that. But we know now that it's a greater scandal than what happened at Watergate. And if you have a problem with Watergate, you should, but ultimately it's child's play, because you have a situation there that someone wanted a leg up in an election. Then you had a president in the form of Barack Hussein Obama and his comrades who wanted to change the very fabric of this nation. That ultimately you don't have a choice, that you can't solve the problems of the day from your dinner table or from that one vote. Or to ultimately open up a border with his auto pen and Alejandro Mayorkas to water down each citizen's constitutionally and duly protected ability to vote, one person, one vote. Because when you have a census that records not only legal residents and citizens, but illegal aliens, it then completely jams and logs up the system. And you have those who are benefiting from your own Social Security, the things that you actually paid into, that you were at least promised by this government, going to those who simply did not deserve it because they did it the illegal way. And many of them having ties to criminal organizations in the process, whether it be MS-13 or Tren de Aragua or the border cartels. Did not care what they did when it came to human trafficking, when it came to smuggling fentanyl and poisons into this country. They did not care, but they sure wanted those benefits. President Trump striking at the heart of this bureaucracy, and it is all connected because it's the illegal migrant crime as well as what we've seen in our cities. Every city, every state, it's almost as if they live on the southern border or even the northern border, because fentanyl was pouring over the Canadian border thanks to Mexican drug cartels. How the hell did they get up to Canada over the course of the last 4 years? How are they able to set up operations of these foreign terrorist organizations, not only across our country, but in Canada? So many promises broken from the last administration, and now everything being made up for in the course of 200 plus days of great successes that you're seeing on a daily basis at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And this promise was made on November 18th of 2023, so dating back even to right after the announcement of the re-election campaign. We're not going to allow child sex mutilation, promised by President Trump. Stanford Medicine ended their sex change operations as a result of all of this. Children's Hospital Los Angeles closed its doors on the Center for Trans Youth Health and Development and Gender Affirming Care, University of Chicago, suspended the so-called gender affirming care for minors, and Rush Medical Center, also in Chicago, halted the so-called gender affirming care for new patients under 18. The University of Pennsylvania Health System stopped the so-called gender affirming care for patients under 19. And Yale, New Haven Health, and Connecticut Children's Medical Center announced they're ending the so-called gender affirming care services. Why does that even matter? Because you had an administration that would rather focus on that, the mutilation of children, than securing our border. It was all a massive distraction. Remember the campaign trail when President Trump highlighted the naval videos that were actually having men dressing up as women, sailors? They'd be on the, I mean, what an absolute distraction. And that's why you had a historic low in recruitment. And that's all changed in 200 plus days under the leadership of the Pentagon Chief and Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, a Bronze Star recipient himself, who has undoubtedly contributed to these recruitment numbers going up. He can actually do PT with the troops. He's actually someone who was on the front lines with his fellow servicemen. Written amazing books on modern warriors. So the American ethos is back. That true masculinity and femininity coming back into the fold of this nation. And it's rather funny, but it's great if you invested in American Eagle over the last week, because Sydney Sweeney standing up to the panicans and the naysayers and just being herself, as it should be. And we should celebrate beauty and health and being fit in this great country, as Secretary Kennedy has reminded us to do, and to remove the poisons out of our water supply. And this all relates back to making our cities beautiful and bold once again. And this will really ultimately be the pinnacle of President Trump's promises. As he stated on November 4th, the day before the election day. That was my last rally in Raleigh-Durham. It was an emotional one early that morning, and then getting on the plane, heading back to Atlanta, and then ultimately covering it from this studio on November 5th. That amazing night, President Trump reclaiming the presidency. We will make America safe again. That was the promise made. The promise was kept after deporting tens of thousands of criminal illegal aliens. The U.S. is on track to see the lowest murder rate on record. And that's undoubtedly brought more safety to Washington, D.C., New York City, Chicago, Illinois, all the way out to Los Angeles, California. But still in these situations, you have stories like Big Balls himself getting beat to a pulp. I mean, people want to serve their country, and they have to look over their shoulder. Think about all the great young women who are working in Washington, D.C., and they're taking the transit, they're just walking to their jobs. Not a lot of room for parking necessarily. It's more of a public transit city. Should they have to worry about being jumped or harassed, or the situation what happened in Cincinnati to Holly being sucker punched by a criminal who was let out of the Fulton County prison system thanks to Fannie Willis, who was too busy throwing lawfare at President Trump. It's the same district attorney who allowed someone to be eaten by bed bugs. And that's no exaggeration. It looked like a third world nation in the prison where President Trump was fingerprinted and ultimately took the most famous headshot that turned to t-shirts and mugs. And I have a couple of them myself, to remind you to fight, 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 and always stand up for what you believe in, regardless of the circumstances, and willing to risk everything in order to save this great country of ours. So we'll see what President Trump has to say moments from now as we're getting to the bottom of the hour, 10:30. President Trump will hold a press conference on this crucial issue, making America safe again, and namely making our big cities beautiful again, getting people the mental health treatment they need, the hospitals, the potentially insane asylums, also the criminals going to jail, not releasing bad people onto our streets, and inevitably he may have the lowest crime rates in modern American history as a result of how they skyrocketed under the last administration and letting foreign terrorist organizations run wild in America's big cities and small towns. And one of the great highlights of Vice President J.D. Vance, even someone he admired, who's a political godfather of sorts for the movement and for his own coming to conservatism, and for me as well, President Ronald Reagan was actually wrong on shutting down the insane asylums. It was premature. And perhaps we see a return to that with some of the discussions and the announcements today. Thank you to our sponsors here on Right Side Broadcasting Network's live desk, mypillow.com/RSBN. Support Mike Lindell and RSBN by shopping now with the simple promo code RSBN and by visiting mypillow.com/RSBN. It's the My Cross that Mike Lindell wears. Save 50% on that, a male and female version of both the My Crosses, and My Pillow bed sheets going for as low as $24.98. All sizes, all colors. Multi-use My Pillow 2.0, $10. It's $9.98. It's better than most lunch deals out there. So mypillow.com/RSBN. Call today. Don't delay. 800-836-7566. You can also donate to the network. Support us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network by going to rsbnetwork.com/donate or by texting RSBN to 801-801. That's texting RSBN to 801-801. You can also send in check, money order, or just cold hard cash if you prefer. 1550-1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. The loveliest village on the plains. That's Auburn, Alabama, 36830. 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. If you like what you see here, we like bringing it to you. Unbridled access, your go-to live desk, the 47th President of the United States, your 50th Vice President, and the 119th Congress in nearly 250 years of this great nation. And that's a packed Press Brady briefing room. We are ready for President Trump, so stay tuned for the Commander-in-Chief and his comments on making America beautiful again, making America safe again, and in turn, making America great again. And frankly, I thought he was too generous to Muriel Bowser, the mayor of Washington, D.C., who he said is a good person, but has simply not been able to do the job. I agree with him there. But this is someone who also did not authorize the sign-off of more National Guard to protect those affected on January 6th, something President Trump authorized. His witness was none other than FBI Director Kash Patel, back when he was senior counsel in the first administration, as well as other cabinet officials and senior advisors. Who else was there for that? House Speaker Nancy Pelosi at the time, who did not accept the assistance of the President of the United States, and then sought to blame him with that fake committee of Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, two of the biggest losers in the history of Washington, D.C. politics, as well as that Benny Thompson. Remember Benny Thompson? He wanted to take away Secret Service protection from the Trumps. Wonder why that was. We saw what happened over the course of fake impeachments and lawfare to the Russia hoax, which we know was just Crossfire Hurricane, and the Steele dossier, all produced by the Hillary Clinton campaign, looking like it was authorized ultimately by Barack Hussein Obama, the auto pen, and people like James Comey and John Brennan, the communists who wanted their deep state League of Shadows to prevail against you, the American people, because they don't believe that you can make up your mind about things not only in your government, but on a daily basis. They think they're smarter than you. And what's exactly smart or wholesome about putting seashells on the beach saying 8647? The threatening language coming from the left just continues to overflow like hot magma coming out of an earthquake and a volcano. Sad to see all of it. But continues to happen on the far left, as we saw from even Texas Demon Rats this past week with their gerrymandering exposure. I'm glad they exposed themselves in the process. And they said they were going nuclear on the option, threatening their colleagues in Texas. And then being called heroes by some, like DuPage board chair Deb Conroy, a complete loser in her own right. There's nothing courageous about running away from your home state and from your constituents in order to do the business that is granted in your own constitution. If you disagree with it, stand up and make your case peacefully and patriotically. No, they chose to go into posh Hyatt hotels or on the dime of Governor Jelly Belly Pritzker of Illinois, and with a population that 44% voted for Donald Trump to become commander-in-chief, only 83% of that congressional representation is that of Democrats. 14 in the House, only 3 Republicans representing Illinois at the federal level. 2 Democrats, of course, in the Senate. The height of hypocrisy. And just like the 13th District of Illinois, the way it's shaped like an earthworm on LSD, as one late-night host put it, it's good to see that the legacy media is actually being fair for once. Scrub back to NBC and Meet the Press and that anchor, the way they were actually asking questions of the Illinois governor. And to his late-night, I guess he wanted that last-minute appearance before it's canceled in May of 2026, but Stephen Colbert actually saying it's interesting you're criticizing the Texas map when look at Illinois' map. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing, and I'm sure you all have seen that across many different channels and networks over the course of the last week, but the height of hypocrisy. So perhaps this media today in the James S. Brady briefing room will give a fair diagnosis to what President Trump has to present today, because a lot of it is relatively unknown. But we'll see what the president has to say as we'll go there live now to the Brady briefing room and the cabinet and President Donald Trump. Enjoy.
Wow. I've been up here a lot. I've never seen a crowd like this. I think we need a ballroom, and that's happening. It's going to be a beautiful ballroom. This is really a lot of people, most I've ever seen in this room. And we're here for a very serious purpose, Something's out of control, but we're going to put it in control very quickly like we did on the southern border. I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening, and they've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. And you people are victims of it, too. You know, you're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. And you all know people and friends of yours that happened. And so you can be anything you want, but you want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live and feel safe and go into a store to buy a newspaper or buy something. And you don't have that now. The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City, some of the places that you hear about as being the worst places on earth, much higher. This is much higher. The number of car thefts has doubled over the past 5 years, and the number of carjackings has more than tripled. Murders in 2023 reached the highest rate probably ever. They say 25 years, but they don't know what that means because it just goes back 25 years. Can't be worse. Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged-out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it. Just like we did on our southern border. Nobody comes through our southern border anymore. 3 months in a row, we had zero. I don't know if that's right, but the people that do the work, it's a very liberal group of people, actually, and they actually said zero for the last 3 months. Nobody thought a thing like that was possible. And, when you take a look at numbers, I just saw some charts. These are different cities throughout the world. Red is... Okay, the red is a place called Washington, D.C. Look at these. Baghdad we doubled up on Baghdad. Panama City, Brasilia, San Jose, Costa Rica, Bogota, Colombia, heavy drugs. Mexico City, I mentioned, Lima, Peru, all double and triple what they are. So do you want to live in places like that? I don't think so. And I think the people in this room, if you wrote correctly, you'd see, look at the kind of numbers we have. D.C., 41 per 100,000, number one that we can find anywhere in the world. Other cities are pretty bad, but they're not as bad as that. Is that where you want to live? The reporters of the world? Juvenile offenders and crimes against persons, as they say. It's getting worse. Not getting better, it's getting worse. And we had a recent indication. There was a story about a man who was just left. He quit because he was asked to do phony numbers on crime. And we're going to look into that. I think Pam is going to be looking into that. But he was asked by the city, I guess, that we don't want to show the real numbers. Let me do numbers so it looks like it's going down. Not going down. And under Biden, it was a disaster. And nobody did anything about it. We're going to do things about it like you wouldn't believe. Every American has a constitutional right to be able to access and petition their government in safety, and countless federal officials and employees likewise have the right to carry out their jobs in peace without being shot. As you know, I lost a very good person a while ago, was shot waiting for his wife. He was in the car. They robbed his car. They shot him. They killed him like it was nothing to it. She was walking to the car. It's a horror show. This issue directly impacts the functioning of the federal government and is a threat to America. Really, it's a threat to our country. We have other cities also that are bad, very bad. You look at Chicago, how bad it is. You look at Los Angeles, how bad it is. We have other cities that are very bad. New York has a problem. And then you have, of course, Baltimore and Oakland. We don't even mention that anymore. They're so far gone. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this. And this will go further. We're starting very strongly with D.C., and we're going to clean it up real quick, very quickly, as they say. Days ago, a former member of the DOJ staff was savagely beaten by a band of roving thugs after defending a young woman from an attempted carjacking. He was left dripping in blood. He thought he was dead, with a broken nose and concussion. Can't believe that he's alive. He can't believe it. In June, a 21-year-old congressional intern was tragically killed after being hit by a stray bullet in a drive-by shooting. a former Trump administration official named Mike Gill, fantastic person, was murdered last year in cold blood in a carjacking blocks away from the White House. We all knew him. Great person. Waiting for his wife as she was walking to the car. A Democrat congressman was also carjacked at gunpoint not far from the Capitol. And in 2023, an aide to Senator Rand Paul was stabbed in the chest and head by a demented lunatic as he walked down the street, just absolutely for no reason. Horrifically, last July 4th weekend, a 3-year-old girl was shot in the head and killed while sitting in a car near the Capitol. It's becoming a situation of complete and total lawlessness. And we're getting rid of the slums, too. We have slums here. We're getting rid of them. I know it's not politically correct. You'll say, oh, so terrible. No, we're getting rid of the slums where they live. Caravans of mass youth rampage through city streets at all times of the day. There are ATVs, motorbikes. They travel pretty well. Entire neighborhoods are now under emergency curfews. Just this past weekend, gunfire went through, and you saw that, the Navy Yard. I saw it this morning. They saw that they fought back against law. See, they fight back until you knock the hell out of them, because it's the only language they understand. But they fought back against law enforcement last night. And they're not going to be fighting back long, because I've instructed them and told them whatever happens, they love to spit in the face of the police as the police are standing up there in uniform. They're standing and they're screaming at them an inch away from their face, and then they start spitting in their face. And I said, you tell them, you spit and we hit, and they can hit real hard. It's a disgusting thing. I've watched that for years, for 3-4 years. I've watched them. The police are standing, and they're told, don't do anything under any such, so and you can see they want to get at it. And they're standing there, and people are spitting in their face, and they're not allowed to do anything. But now they are allowed to do whatever the hell they want. This dire public safety crisis stems directly from the abject failures of the city's local leadership. The radical left city council adopted no cash bail. By the way, every place in the country where you have no cash bail is a disaster. That's what started the problem in New York, and they don't change it. They don't want to change it. That's what started it in Chicago. I mean, bad politicians started it, bad leadership started it, but that was the one thing that's central: no cash bail. Somebody murders somebody and they're out on no cash bail before the day is out. We're going to end that in Chicago. We're going to change the statute. I spoke with Pam and Todd and everybody. We're going to change the statute, and I'm going to have to get the Republicans to vote, because the Democrats are weak on crime, totally weak on crime. They don't know why. They want to stop because they get mugged too. But we're going to change no cash bail. We're going to change the statute and get rid of some of the other things. And we'll count on the Republicans in Congress and Senate to vote. We have the majority, so we'll vote. We don't have a big majority, but we've gotten everything, including the great, big, beautiful bill. Got that done, and that's one of the greatest things that's ever happened to people in this country. They're starting to figure it out, how good it is. Biggest tax cut in history. So many things. But we'll be able to get that done. So, Todd, if you and Pam can draw up things working with the people, we will. I'll get it passed. We'll get it passed with the Republicans. Probably won't get, think of this, probably won't get one Democrat vote, because they have no idea what they're doing. That's why they want men playing in women's sports. That's why they want transgender for everybody transgender. And they just got walloped in an election, in a landslide, and they haven't changed one thing. I saw the other day the certain gentleman who was a very well-known politician, Democrat, was fighting like hell that men should be allowed to play in women's sport. They just don't get it. They said it's an 80-20 issue, and I think it's a 97-3 issue. And I don't know who the three are. I've never heard anybody come. Nobody's ever come up to me, sir, you have to let men play in women's sports. You have to do it, sir. Nobody's ever approached me. I don't know where this issue even comes from. Never seen anything like it. But they turned our nation's capital into a sanctuary jurisdiction. That's the other thing. We have to get rid of sanctuary cities as quickly as possible. We're going to do it, too. We have to. Because it's sanctuary for criminals. Releasing illegal alien gang members onto the streets in 2022, nearly 70% of criminals arrested in Washington went unprosecuted. That's not going to happen with the group we have standing aside and standing behind me. And at the Metropolitan Police Department, it's now reached a small number relatively compared to what it was, but it's thousands of people. You know, we have thousands of police. I was told today, sir, they want more police. I heard a number, 3,500 police. That's a lot of police. 3,500. I thought they were going to say, we only have 30 policemen or women. He said, we have 3,500. We need more. You don't need more. That's so many. I never heard. That's like an army. How could you need more than 3,000? It just happened 2 minutes ago. Sir, they've requested more police. Oh, what do they have? About 3,500. I said, 3,500? This is not a big area. It's ridiculous. What you need is rules and regulations, and you need the right people to implement them. And we have the right people here, that I can tell you. Look at the border. Biden said there's nothing you can do. Kamala was the border czar. She never called one of the Border Patrol agents who are great. ICE is great. Never spoke to anybody. Never went there. But she was the border czar. And everybody said it was impossible to fix. I fixed it in 3 months. No, really. I fixed it the first week, but really fixed it over the last couple of months. And, I mean, literally to a point where, as I said, 0 illegals entering our country in the last 90 days. Pretty amazing. It's time for dramatic action. We're going to do the same thing over here. It's going to be a very safe city very soon. We're not looking to just take years, because a lot of people die in years. And we've got incredible people in this country, except we have to allow them to do their job. And that we will deliver like nobody's ever delivered before. I actually think it's easy. You know, if you're competent, it's easy. If you're incompetent, it's impossible. But I'm very competent. Last week, my administration surged 500 federal agents into the district, including from the FBI, ATF, DEA, Park Police, the U.S. Marshal Service, the Secret Service, and the Department of Homeland Security. You know, a lot of nations, they don't have anything like that. They got some police, and they're rough police. They don't have DEA, ATF, FBI, Park Police, the U.S. Marshal Service, Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security. They got some police, but they're rough police, and they do their job. They don't have crime. We're not going to have crime either. They made dozens of arrests, and that's what starts to happen. Again, cashless bail. Watch what we do with that. Today, we're formally declaring a public safety emergency. This is an emergency. This is a tragic emergency. And it's embarrassing for me to be up here. You know, I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday. I don't like being up here talking about how unsafe and how dirty and disgusting this once beautiful capital was, with graffiti all over the walls. It's another part of it, by the way, because we're talking about safety, but we're also talking about beautification. We have the most beautiful, potentially, capital in the world. We always had. But people come from Iowa, they come from Indiana, they come and then they get mugged. Not going to happen. Keep coming, because by the time you get your trip set, it's going to be safe again, and it's going to be clean very quickly. We're going to replace the medians that are falling down all over the roads. We're going to replace the potholes. We're going to put a nice new coat of asphalt over the top. No, we don't have to rip the road out and spend 7 years building a new road because they cut everything. Because some designers said, well, we need a 1/4 of an inch more turn for safety reasons. No, we're going to do it right. We're going to get it done quickly. So today we're declaring public safety emergency in the District of Columbia, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's fantastic, is taking command of the Metropolitan Police Department as of this moment. And I'll be making the appropriate notifications to Congress and to the mayor, our new DEA administrator, who's one of the top in the country. He better be Terry. If you're not, I'm going to get rid of you so fast. Terry Cole. Terry, thanks. Very good. We just got him. Most highly recommended person. And you'll be designated as the interim federal commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Department. Okay? And you run them tough. They're good. You have a lot of good people. You have people that shouldn't be there. You also have people that shouldn't be there. They got in there because of woke. But you have a lot of great police. And those people are the ones that want to help you. This city will no longer be a sanctuary for illegal alien criminals. We will have full, seamless, integrated cooperation at all levels of law enforcement, and we'll deploy officers across the district with an overwhelming presence. You'll have more police, and you'll be so happy because you'll be safe. When you walk down the street, you're going to see police, or you're going to see FBI agents. We're going to have a lot of agents on the streets. You're going to have a lot of essentially military, and we will bring in the military if it's needed. By the way, we're going to have National Guard, but Pete Hegseth will tell you about it. We will bring in the military if needed. People say, "Oh, that's so terrible. He's going to bring in." It's been used many times over the years. I don't think we'll need it. I think we've got so many great people, including the people that are in the police department with proper leadership. They'll immediately begin massive enforcement operations targeting known gangs, drug dealers, and criminal networks to get them the hell off the street, maybe get them out of the country, because a lot of them came into our country illegally. They shouldn't have been allowed in. They come from Venezuela. They come from all over the world. We're going to get them the hell out. They won't be here long. But some of these people, a lot of them, are homegrown criminals. And these are bad people. These are rough people. And this is just a list of some of the people that were given to me today that were criminals removed from the D.C. streets this weekend. They were rough and tough, but we're rougher and tougher. Look at these people here. Nothing, you know. They're not going to be your local school teacher. Look at this guy. He has killed people numerous times. They're not going to be an asset. They will never be an asset to society. I don't care. I know we all want to say, oh, they're going to be rehabbed. It's not going to be rehabbed. I'm going to ask Doug Burgum to come up and say a couple of words because he's in charge, as you know. He's Interior, but he's in charge of the U.S. Park Police. And I've heard so many great things about the Park Police. They're proud of it. They've been there for a long time. Their families oftentimes grow into the roles. They love the country. They love this area. So, Doug, could you say a few words, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the U.S. Park Police, this is the oldest federal police force in the nation. They were formed in 1791 by none other than President George Washington. They've got the awesome responsibility of protecting our nation's most sacred monuments. The National Mall, Washington Monument, Jefferson Memorial, Lincoln Memorial, Statue of Liberty, and out west, the Presidio and the Golden Gate area. These folks have tens of millions of visitors a year, the kind of people that President Trump's talking about that come from around the country and around the world to see our sacred and learn about our history and our sacred monuments. They've been doing a fantastic job, but they are so pleased, the rank and file, that President Trump is now allowing them to enforce the law. As those of you that live in the city may know, that the circles and the triangle parks that are spread throughout D.C. are actually federal park property. So the U.S. Park Police also have responsibility for that. These became littered with homeless camps under the Biden administration. All of you saw that. Since President Trump's executive order on March 27th, making D.C. safe and beautiful again, the U.S. Park Police have removed over 70 homeless camps. And President Trump also talked about beautification. They're stopping and enforcing the laws against graffiti on our monuments. They've removed over 80 specific attacks against our history with graffiti on our monuments. So they continue to do a great job, whether it's in their vehicles, on foot, or on the mounted police that you see around the National Mall. And President Trump, they thank you. The rank and file is so happy to be enforcing the law again. Thank you for your leadership. And and they're excited about the announcement you're making today.
Thank you. Very good. Great job you're doing. Thank you very much. Pete, could you say something about the military, if you would?
Well, Mr. President, it's an honor to be here. And at your direction this morning, we've mobilized the D.C. National Guard. It'll be operationalized by the Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll, through the D.C. Guard. You will see them flowing into the streets of Washington in the coming week. At your direction as well, sir, there are other units we are prepared to bring in. Other National Guard units, other specialized units. They will be strong, they will be tough, and they will stand with their law enforcement partners. This is nothing new for DOD. As the President noted, at the border, we've got 10,000 troops down there who've been operating in defense cooperation areas, defense zones, where there's zero illegal crossings because of troops on strikers scanning the border. We've been protecting other people's borders for 20 years. It's about time we protect our own, and we're working with ICE and CBP. In Los Angeles, we did the same thing. Working with the California National Guard, working with ICE officers. ICE officers deserve to do their job and not be attacked. We will work alongside all D.C. police and federal law enforcement to ensure this city is safe, this city is beautiful. And as I always say about President Trump to the troops, he has their back. And my message to the National Guard and federal law enforcement in Washington is we have your back as well. Be tough, be strong, we're right behind you. Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm going to ask Pam, because she's now, as you heard me say, she's really in charge of a lot of what we're talking about. She's done an incredible job. People are going to start to see the fruits of her labor. And Pam, maybe you could say a few words about what we're talking about here.
Sure, President. Let me be crystal clear. Crime in D.C. is ending and ending today. We are going to use every power we have to fight criminals here. President, thank you for caring about our capital. Families come here every summer. Our museums are free. We have the National Zoo. We have the National Gallery. D.C. should be a place where everyone can come and feel safe. Behind me and to my side, we have some of the best career law enforcement and prosecutors in the country who are ready to take this on. As the President said, Terry Cole is going to be supervising the Metro Police Department. Gaddy Serralta, our U.S. Marshal, is going to be supervising command and control, the entire operation. Our Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, and I will be working with them closely, along with our great FBI Director, Kash Patel. Kash is going to talk to you in a minute about what we did in Virginia recently with Governor Youngkin. Many of you covered that, and it was tremendously successful. Not only that, our secret weapon here in D.C. is U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, one of the toughest prosecutors and a former judge. And she is going to be talking about juvenile crime, how it's out of control here, and what she's going to do to fight back. No more crime rampant in our beautiful capital. No more teenage girls beating a disabled man to death. No more of that. No more drive-bys. We're going to do everything we can. And working with the ATF Director Driscoll and Commander of the Army, we're going to all work together. That's what we all do in this room. We work together. We fight. Do not underestimate one person in this room. We're going to make D.C. beautiful. We're going to make D.C. safe again. One other thing, just at the wharf a few days ago, the area of the wharf, Terry Cole reached out to me, not even nightfall, on the weekend, where so many families and tourists go. A guy's overdosing from fentanyl on a park bench. In the middle of families around, they administer Narcan and saved his life. No more of that. The President of the United States is going to clean up D.C., and we're going to be there to help him, and we're going to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Cash, talk about Northern Virginia, if you will. Northern Virginia, we had a big success.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Attorney General Bondi, for your leadership, Deputy Attorney General, and the rest of our interagency partners. Mr. President, the following is what happens when you let good cops be cops, and I just want to highlight that before I get into Northern Virginia. This year alone, under President Trump's administration, we've had over 4,000 child victims identified and found. That's a 33% increase from the same time period last year. 33% increase. We've had a seizure of 1,500 kilograms of fentanyl up to this date. That is a 25% increase since the same time period last year. And just to put it in perspective, 1,500 kilograms of fentanyl is enough to kill 115 million Americans. 115 million Americans. Cops are getting after it. The FBI has arrested 19,000 people this year alone. Thanks to President Trump's administrations, that's double than where we were this time last year. And we have also arrested 1,600 people who have committed violent acts against children. 270 of them are human traffickers of children. Mr. President, this is what happens when you have great leadership at the Attorney General with Pam Bondi. Your administration's priority of protecting the homeland and protecting American citizens and protecting our children, and the murder rates are plummeting. We are now able to report that the murder rate is on track to be the lowest in U.S. history, in modern recorded U.S. history, thanks to this team behind me and President Trump's priorities. And how do we do it? And what are we going to bring to D.C.? What we did in Northern Virginia, thanks to Terry Cole and Governor Youngkin and the team, we stood up a task force out in my Northern Virginia field office, and we said, let's let good cops be cops, let's get them the intelligence and what they need, and let's get the red tape out of their way, and let's get DOJ partnered up with us to bring great prosecutions. And that's exactly what we did. In 1 month, we arrested 545 violent felons. 545 in the state of Virginia, thanks to Governor Youngkin's partnership. And that simplicity in law enforcement is what's coming to Washington, D.C. When you let good cops be cops, when you give them the intel they need, when you work with our Homeland Security Task Force, when you work with Terry and Gaddy and I go way back to Miami. These guys are great leaders of the respective departments and law enforcement capacities. And when you have the DOJ and President Trump driving behind this mission, we are going to clean up Washington, D.C., and we're going to do it the right way, the lawful way, and we're going to make sure Washington, D.C. is safe again. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Attorney General.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Cash. So the process begins right now. It actually started over the weekend, and we confronted a lot of very bad people. But it's going to be something that will be pretty amazing to you as you watch it. And I think most of you say it's a beautiful thing to do it right. We're going to be removing homeless encampments from all over our parks, our beautiful, beautiful parks, which now a lot of people can't walk on. They're very dirty, we got a lot of problems. But we've already started that. We're moving the encampments away, trying to take care of people. Some of those people, we don't know how they even got there. Some of those people are from different countries, different parts of the world. Nobody knows who they are. They have no idea, but they're there. We're getting rid of the people from underpasses and public spaces from all over the city. There are many places that they can go, and we're going to help them as much as you can help. But they'll not be allowed to turn our capital into a wasteland for the world to see. The Metropolitan Police Department and the federal authorities will be supported in the effort, a really big effort, the 800 D.C. National Guardsmen that we'll put on, and much more if necessary, much more. You remember I said, I offered 10,000 once. Remember I said to a certain person, a person who I thought always was highly overrated, not very competent, but I said, if you need them, we'll give you 10,000 of the military or the National Guard. They turned me down. But if necessary, we're going to move service members directly to joining the Guardsmen. And that'll take place very rapidly, and that'll be done in conjunction with Pam and with Pete and everybody else. Washington, D.C. should be one of the safest, cleanest, and most beautiful cities anywhere in the world. And we're going to make it that. We're going to make it safe. We're going to make it smart. We're going to make it beautiful, so beautiful. Some of the buildings, we're going to add to it. You see what we've done at the White House. The White House is a whole different building. I do that in my part-time because it's a natural instinct as a real estate person. I was very good at that, and I was very good at fixing things up. I like fixing things up. You see what's happening. The marble floors are being reinstalled, renovated, fixed. The whole place is becoming very beautiful. We're going to be adding a magnificent ballroom, most beautiful ballroom, I think, anywhere. We need it. I would have certainly loved to have had it today. I think we would have filled it up. A lot of you are standing outside, can't get in this room. I've never seen the room like this, which tells me that you want to talk about, I mean, this was a D.C. news conference, it tells me that you want to talk about crime in D.C. and beautification of D.C., but I'm going to put that's easy. And I think, frankly, fixing the crime with the pros, fixing the crime is easy, too. A person who I've known for a long time, and she's been incredible. She was a fantastic, one of the best ever district attorneys in New York. She was in Westchester, and she became a judge, very successful judge. And then she went into showbiz because she was such a good DA and such a good judge, tough judge, but fair, always fair. Nobody ever complained about that, but she was tough. And because of that and her reputation, she went into showbiz. So a lot of people don't, they think of Jeanine as showbiz. Actually, showbiz was not her thing. And she did great. She was on, along with a couple of other of my friends, on the #1 show. And she did great. But this is what she loves doing. This is really her baby. What she's going to do is going to be incredible. And I'd like to speak for just a few seconds on what she has in mind, what she wants to do. We're going to be appointing some judges. We have some open spots, and we're going to take people because the judges are letting killers out. They just say, go, that's okay, don't worry about it. So we're putting some Pam recommended, Todd recommended, some judges that are great. Jeanine recommended. Jeanine's given me 3 great candidates already. We have about 10 open spots, and we can probably create some more. We need them. Jeanine, would you say a few words, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, Madam Attorney General, and to all my partners here. We all want the same thing. We all want a safe city. We want a safe capital. We want to be able to bring our families here. We want to be able to come and enjoy the history that makes this place great. And unfortunately, we are not in that position right now. And Mr. President, I want to thank you for taking the step that we need right now to make criminals understand that they are not going to get away with it anymore. And I'm not going to stand here and go over and over the cases. But what I can tell you is this. I see too much violent crime being committed by young punks who think that they can get together in gangs and crews and beat the hell out of you or anyone else. They don't care where they are. They can be in DuPont Circle, but they know that we can't touch them. Why? Because the laws are weak. I can't touch you if you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old and you have a gun. I convict someone of shooting another person with an illegal gun on a public bus in the chest. Intent to kill? I convict him. And you know what the judge gives him? Probation. Says you should go to college. We need to go after the D.C. Council and their absurd laws. We need to get rid of this concept of, no cash bail. We need to recognize that the people who matter are the law-abiding citizens. And it starts today. But it's not going to end today, because the president is going to do everything we need to do to make sure that these emboldened criminals understand we see you, we're watching you, and we're going to change the law to catch you. And my final note is this. These kids understand that the jurisdiction is through the State Attorney General, Brian Schwab. I did a poster of the young man from Doge who was beaten bloody with a severe concussion, a broken nose. And then I did a poster of what happens to those kids, because I can't arrest them, I can't prosecute them. They go to family court, and they get to do yoga and arts and crafts. Enough. It changes today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Great job. Thank you. If I could, I just signed some executive orders. I'd like to have Will please come up, and we'll let the people know what we signed. Do you want to put them down?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
A short while ago in the Oval Office, President Trump signed 2 crucial executive actions to deal with the emergency crime conditions we currently face in the District of Columbia. The first of these was an executive order, as President Trump said before, invoking his powers under Section 40 of the Home Rule Act to take federal control of the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. Along with that executive order, President Trump signed the statutorily required notification letters to Mayor Bowser and to the relevant House and Senate committee leaders. The second major executive action that President Trump signed was a presidential memorandum directing the Secretary of Defense to utilize the National Guard to address the conditions we see on our streets here in D.C. It also authorized the Secretary of Defense to work with state governors to utilize their National Guard units if necessary as well. These are bold, decisive steps intended to combat the out-of-control crime conditions we've seen on D.C.'s streets for far too long. And I, for one, am deeply proud to be part of an administration that's finally coming to terms with these issues, sir.
Thank you very much.
Sir.
Thank you. So, just to conclude, Washington, D.C. should be one of the safest, cleanest, most beautiful places anywhere in the world. It was years ago. We had one problem that was a pretty big problem. The radical left got out of control and they started trying to rip down statues. And I said, let's go pass a law real fast. We're going to do it real fast. But we were blocked by the Democrats who do not want safety. Nobody gets it. I don't get it. They don't get it because they can't get votes. I don't know how they can win an election with this, but they don't want safety. And I found an old statute, very old, early 1900s, that said if you so much as touch or even think about destroying a statue or a monument in Washington, D.C., you go to jail for 10 years with no probation, no anything. In other words, slightly different than we have today. Today we have cashless bail. There you get jailed 10 years. No curtailed sentence, 10 years. And we took it out. Nobody used it. It was never used because, you know, it's harsh. And you remember they started to rip down the statue of Abraham Lincoln. I said, that's a tough one to rip down. He was pretty good, Pam. I think he was pretty good. When the ropes started going around Abraham Lincoln to pull him down, Andrew Jackson, others, and they were heading to the Jefferson Memorial, Thomas Jefferson. They're going to do a big number there. I said, it's time. And I signed that statute immediately. We had it updated. We made it use the same language, all passed by Congress. And I announced it's 10 years in jail, no probation, no anything, 10 years, no curtail sentence if you touch, so much as touch a statue in Washington, D.C. And it was an amazing sight, beautiful sight. Everybody just left. The ropes were hanging around Andrew Jackson, and there were two ropes around Abraham Lincoln. They left the rope, but everybody just left. And that was the last problem we ever had. You know, that was the last problem that we ever had with the statues. They were going wild, and somebody came to me and said, sir, in 1910, I don't want to give you an exact because you'll say, Donald Trump gave us wrong dates around like early on. You know, if I'm slightly off, they make you sound a little bad. So I won't put myself in that position. I won't put you in that position because I think everybody agrees with what we're doing today. But when I signed that thing, it was like a miracle. Everybody left. They were gone. They were starting to march down. They started the march toward Thomas Jefferson. And I figured he was always going to be safe. But they found something with him, and they found something with Abraham Lincoln. And even in the name George Washington in California, numerous places changed the name of George Washington High School and various other places. They took George Washington's name. This was a sick, woke culture that I think we've largely ended. And a lot of those people that were woke are now turning out to be the opposite. I won't go so far as to say MAGA. It's a very special category. But they've gotten out of that. But we have people that love this country, and they love this really beautiful capital. It is. I flew over it the other day, and I said, what a beautiful place. But if there's crime all over the streets, when you get there, it doesn't look so beautiful. But we're going to make it beautiful again. We're going to fix it with crime, and we're going to also, as we're doing that, we're going to start doing things that we know how to do, that I know how to do better than anybody, I guess, because of my experience from previous life. But not only are we stopping the crime, we're going to clean up the trash and the graffiti and the grime and the dirt and the broken marble panels and all of the things they've done to hurt this city. And we're going to restore the city back to the gleaming capital that everybody wants it to be. It's going to be something very special. All of these people are really tough. Could I shake your hand, Getty, please? You're going to be so important here. You're going to be that guy. I hope I don't have to fire him in 2 weeks because he's too soft. I don't think he's too soft. If I do, I will, though. Is it okay if you're soft, weak, and pathetic like so many people? I will fire you so fast. You're not going to have to worry about that. No, I think you're going to do a fantastic job. And everybody in this room, they may not express it, but they all want that to happen. You know, they want to be safe, and they have families too. So it's an honor to have such a large group. I've done this for years now, hard to believe. I've never seen this room so packed. In fact, I'm sure it's a violation of every fire code. But we'll let you stay anyway. You're taking a chance. And with that, we'll say, maybe if you could, oh, wow. We could be here all day long. If we could keep the first questions, perhaps, to this subject, and then we'll go on to a few others. Please.
Mr. President, thank you so much. Can you talk about how personal of an issue this is? You talked about flying over the Washington Monument and seeing the pride of what D.C. is, and do you believe that the status of the city, the cleanliness, the way that crime is low, is a direct reflection on how the country is run?
Yeah, I do. I think the Capitol, look, everyone comes here. They're all coming. All the leaders, they're all wanting to come. And I say it, I've said it again, but I'm really just quoting other leaders from NATO, from the Middle East, King of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE. I was over there. We brought back $5.1 trillion of investment into our country. But a month and a half ago, I was at NATO. We had a great thing. They agreed to put up 5% instead of 2%. 2% they didn't pay, 5% is already paid. We had a great meeting, and they all said the same thing. They said our country was dead. They thought our country was gone. 1 year ago, they said your country was dead. And now you have the hottest country anywhere in the world. We do. We have the hottest country in the world right now. The tariffs have helped. It's given us not only the money, it's billions, trillions of dollars of money, but it gives us great power over enemies. We solved 5 wars with Pakistan and India. We just solved one. Azerbaijan and, as you know, and Armenia. A war was raging for 37 years. And the 2 leaders got up and they said, we never thought this would be solved. Russia tried to solve it. They all tried to solve it. It was a very tough situation, but we got it done. And I said to the 2 men, I said, are you guys friends? And they had a hard time. They've been killing each other for 37 years, right? One was there 5 years, one was there for 22 years. He said, my whole life I've been fighting this war, and you got it solved. But we did many of those. We did in the Congo and Rwanda. That's been going on for 30 years. 8 to 9 million people killed that they know of, but it was raging, and we got that solved. We got a lot of them done. It's a great honor. But you want to have, when they come, the leaders come to our country to sign documents that the war is over or whatever, or for other reasons. They come for trade. And you want them to come through so beautifully. You ride down those roads, everything should be perfect. You shouldn't have medians falling down into the roadway. Median, the metal things that are always. Somebody had a great lobbyist, because I've never seen them look good. I've been looking at those things with the little gray. They're always broken and bad, but here they're really bad. And we're going to either put new or fix it. And it's not expensive. It's not really expensive. And we're going to fix our roads a little bit. We're going to clean up our sidewalks. You have countries where every Saturday the people go out and they wash their sidewalks in front of their stores or their houses. They scrub their sidewalks. So we aren't quite at that level yet, I don't think, Gaddy. We're not quite there yet, but maybe we will. They go out and they scrub. I think it's so beautiful to hear that and to see those stories. But we're going to make it clean. But just to finish with your question, it's a very, very strong reflection of our country. And when they see a bad city, you know, my father always used to tell me, I had a wonderful father, very smart, and he used to say, son, when you walk into a restaurant and you see a dirty front door, don't go in. Because if the front door is dirty, the kitchen's dirty also. Same thing with the Capitol. If our Capitol's dirty, our whole country is dirty, and they don't respect us. So it's a very good question.
Mr. President, sorry. Question for you on this specific issue. Do you expect more cities to follow DC's path if this goes through? So the idea is that Chicago, LA, San Francisco, would they expect similar action what we've seen in DC? And the other question, sir, there's reporting that the administration is going to reclassify marijuana. Would that send mixed messages that if marijuana is okay, some drugs are okay, but we're trying to clean up crime? How do they go hand in hand?
We're only looking at that. That's early, but you know, somebody reported it, which is fine. We're looking at it. Some people like it, some people hate it. Some people hate the whole concept of marijuana because if it does bad for the children, it does bad for people that are older than children. But we're looking at reclassification, and we'll make a determination over the next few weeks. And that determination hopefully will be the right one. It's a very complicated subject, the subject of marijuana. I've heard great things having to do with medical, and I've had bad things having to do with just about everything else. But medical and, for pain and various things, I've heard some pretty good things. But for other things, I've heard some pretty bad things. The other part of your question, I mean, we're just going to see what happens with it all. We're going to have a tremendous success in what we're doing. Other cities are hopefully watching this. They're all watching, just like everyone's watching here. They're all watching, and maybe they'll clean up, and maybe they'll do this and get rid of the cashless bail thing and all of the things that caused the problem. I mean, if you go back, this whole thing with cashless bail is a disaster. So many problems came that we never had before. So they're watching us today, and if they don't learn their lesson, if they haven't studied us properly, because we're going to be very successful. I have zero doubt about that. It's going to be. It's a question of will it be really fast, like the border. You know, everyone said, they used to say, Biden used to say, I need legislation. I didn't get any legislation. I called up our people, and we did a great job. Tom Homan was great. As you know, our secretary did a great job. They did a great job. There's no games. They didn't play games. And we're going to have the same thing here. But then I'm going to look at New York in a little while. Let's do this. Let's do this together. Let's see. It's going to go pretty quickly. And if we need to, we're going to do the same thing in Chicago, which is a disaster. We have a mayor there who's totally incompetent. He's an incompetent man. And we have an incompetent governor there. Pritzker's an incompetent. His family threw him out of the business, and he ran for governor. And now I understand he wants to be president. But I noticed he lost a little weight, so maybe he has a chance. You know, you never know what happens. But Pritzker's a gross incompetent guy, thrown out of the family business. But when I look at Chicago and I look at L.A., if we didn't go to L.A. 3 months ago, L.A. would be burning like the part that didn't burn. If he would have allowed the water to come down, which I told him about in my first term, I said, you're going to have problems. Let it come down. We actually sent in our military to have the water come down into L.A. They still didn't want it to come down after the fires. But that was it. We have it coming down. But hopefully L.A. is watching. That mayor also. The city's burning. They lost like 25,000 homes. I went there the day after the fire. You were there, and I saw people standing in front of a burned down home. It was, their homes were incinerated. They weren't like, even the steel was literally, it was all warped and literally disintegrated because of the winds and the flame and the whole thing, like a blowtorch. They were standing on this beautiful day, maybe a couple of days after. We gave it a little time because what they had suffered. Almost 25,000 homes. And you see what's happening now. They didn't give their permits. I went to a town hall meeting. I said, we're going to get you the federal permits, which are much harder. Almost immediately. Lee Zeldin is a star. He did an incredible job. They have all their federal permits. They don't have their city permits. And the mayor said to me, we think we could have them in 2 years. I was walking down the street, and I met with firemen and police. And I was saying hello to many people that were standing in front of their homes with yellow tape. You can't go in. You can't go onto the lot. And those people wanted to start rebuilding their homes then and there. And the mayor said, we should be able to get them the permits within 2 years. I said, that's a shame. 2 years? Are you kidding? I'm going to get them the federal permit like almost immediately. 2 years. And she roared back, well, maybe 1 year. The place was booing her out of the place. They don't have their permits to build their homes. And now they're talking about putting, this is among the most beautiful areas was in the country. Now they're talking about putting low-income housing there. Can you believe this? I love low-income housing. I made money with low-income housing. I built low-income housing. I know more about low-income housing and luxury housing. I know about everything real estate. They want to replace some of those homes with low-income housing. They haven't gotten their permits yet. We've gotten all the federal permits, which are much tougher to get, and it was done almost immediately through Lee Zeldin and Federal Environmental. And I watched the other day, those people are angry. And now, you know, they had tremendous, they loved that area. They loved the whole big area, different places, but they loved it. It was all luxury stuff and beautiful stuff, and some wasn't that luxury, but the level of love for that neighborhood, their neighborhoods, was incredible. And you know what? I watch people on television, they want to go, they want to leave. They've lost their spirit, they've lost their heart, because the mayor's incompetent, and Gavin Newsom is incompetent. He's got a good line of bullshit, but that's about it. He's incompetent. And you have Los Angeles is, you know, it's amazing. You know, I called, the first thing I did, I got the Olympics to go there. I was the one that got it. And by a rare thing that happened, I'll be the president. I was very upset because I got the Olympics there, and I said I won't be president when it comes. But bad things happened, and illegal things happened, really illegal things happened. Now it turns out one good thing was I'm going to be the president for the Olympics for 2050, for 250, which is going to be fantastic, and also for the World Cup. So we have a lot of good things, and I hope 250 is going to be the 250th anniversary is going to be the best. But when I looked at those people, and I saw last night on television that they still don't have their permits, it's a disgrace what's happened in Los Angeles.
Yeah, thank you. The China tariff deadline is tonight. Do you plan to extend that?
We'll see what happens. China's been, we've been dealing very nicely with China, as you probably have heard. They have tremendous tariffs that they're paying to the United States of America. And we'll see what happens. They've been dealing quite nicely. The relationship is very good with President Xi and myself.
President, you mentioned your upcoming meeting with President Putin. Can you tell us what you hope to get out of that and whether you'll consider inviting President Zelensky to join?
So you have to understand, this is a war that should have never happened. This is a war that wouldn't have happened if I were president. It would have never happened. It was the apple of his eye. I got along very well with President Putin. But if you look, under President Bush, they took a lot of territory. Under President Obama, they took a lot of territory. Under Biden, they essentially took the whole thing. You know, it's just a question of time. Under Trump, you know what they took? Nothing. Nothing. I was the one that said, you can't build your pipeline. That was half built. I came in, I stopped the pipeline. It's called Nord Stream 2. Nobody knows that, you know. Nobody ever heard of Nord Stream 2. You might have not even heard of it. Biggest pipeline in the world. I stopped it. I was not a friend of Russia, but I got along well with Putin. It's always good to get along with other countries if possible, but that doesn't mean you roll over like Biden did. Biden came in and he immediately approved the pipeline. I couldn't believe it. Then they say Trump wasn't tough on Russia. I wasn't tough. I was the toughest. Putin said, if you're not tough, I would hate like hell to see you. I stopped the biggest economic development job, the biggest job that Russia had ever built. I stopped it. It was dead. And this low IQ president came in and he let them build a pipeline and supply oil and gas all over Europe, you know. So this is really a feel-out meeting a little bit. And President Putin invited me to get involved. He wants to get involved. I believe he wants to get it over with. Now, I've said that a few times, and I've been disappointed because I'd have like a great call with him, and then missiles would be lobbed into Kiev or some other place, and you'd have 60 people laying on a road dying. I said, that's cold. That's cold. But it's a violent war. 5,000 to 7,000 people a week are dying. And you know, there's nobody from here. They're all Russian and Ukrainian people, and some people from the cities, much smaller number, but still, those missiles do damage and they kill a lot of people. But mostly soldiers, and they're young soldiers. Although in the case of Ukraine, they're getting much older. They're drafting 60-year-olds now. It's a terrible thing to witness, and I think I have an obligation. Look, this is Joe Biden's war. This is not my war. I made a deal with NATO a month ago. You covered it very accurately, actually. We don't pay anything anymore. You know, we're not paying anything. They are buying things from us, and NATO is paying us. I got it raised from 2% of GDP to 5%. And they're paying us for everything that we send. We're not paying. But Biden approved $350 billion. Europe has spent $100 billion. The money that's been spent and the death is incredible. It's the worst thing that's happened, by far the worst that's happened since World War II. So I'm going in to speak to Vladimir Putin, and I'm going to be telling him, you got to end this war, you got to end it. And he wasn't going to mess with me. This war would have never happened. You know, we had a discussion about it one time, and we never had that discussion again. Would have never happened. And when the election was rigged, and then Biden took office, which was barely took office. The auto pen took office. Bad things started happening. Bad things, stupid things were said. And it ended up in a war. And you know, and I don't believe this will happen anymore because I have that pretty well covered. This could end up in a third world war. This could have been a third world war. I don't think that's going to happen now. But I thought it was very respectful that the president of Russia is coming to our country as opposed to us going to his country or even a third party place. But I think we'll have constructive conversations. Then after that meeting, immediately, maybe as I'm flying out, maybe as I'm leaving the room, I'll be calling the European leaders who I get along with very well. And, you know, I have a great relationship, I think, with all of them. And I get along with Zelensky, but, you know, I disagree with what he's done. Very, very severely disagree. This is a war that should have never happened, wouldn't have happened. But I'll be speaking to Zelensky. The next meeting will be with Zelensky and Putin, or Zelensky and Putin and me. I'll be there if they need. But I want to have a meeting set up between the two leaders. I was a little bothered by the fact that Zelensky was saying, well, I have to get constitutional approval. I mean, he's got approval to go into war and kill everybody, but he needs approval to do a land swap because there'll be some land swapping going on. I know that through Russia and through conversations with everybody to the good, for the good of Ukraine. Good stuff, not bad stuff. Also, some bad stuff for both. So there's good and there's bad. But it's very complex because you have lines that are very uneven, and there'll be some swapping, there'll be some changes in land, and the word that they will use is, you know, they make changes. We're going to change the lines, the battle lines. Russia's occupied a big portion of Ukraine. They've occupied some very prime territory. We're going to try and get some of that territory back for Ukraine. But they've taken some very prime territory. They've taken largely ocean, you know, in real estate we call it oceanfront property. That's always the most valuable property. If you're in a lake, a river, or an ocean, it's always the best property. Well, Ukraine, a lot of people don't know that Ukraine was largely 1,000 miles of ocean. That's gone. Other than one small area, Odessa, it's a small area. There's just a little bit of water left. So I'm going to go and see the parameters. Now, I may leave and say, good luck, and that'll be the end. I may say this is not going to be settled. I mean, there are those that believe that Putin wanted all of Ukraine. I happen to be one of them, by the way. I think if it weren't for me, he would not be even talking to anybody else right now. But I'm going to meet with him. We're going to see what the parameters are. I'm then going to call up President Zelensky and the European leaders right after the meeting, yeah. And I'm going to tell them what kind of a deal. I'm not going to make a deal. It's not up to me to make a deal. I think a deal should be made for both. I think Russia has to get back into building their country. It's a massive country. I think they have 11 time zones, if you can believe it. It's a massive, it's by far, from the standpoint of land, it's by far the largest. They have tremendous potential in Russia to do well. They're not doing well. Their economy is not doing well right now because It's been very well disturbed by this. It doesn't help when the President of the United States tells their largest or second largest oil buyer that we're putting a 50% tariff on you if you buy oil from Russia. That was a big blow. And then they say, gee, he wasn't so tough. Nobody else would have done that. And I haven't stopped there. I mean, look, I was all set to do things far bigger than that, but I got a call that they'd like to meet, and I'm going to see what they want to meet about. I'd like to see a ceasefire. I'd like to see the best deal that could be made for both parties. You know, it takes two to tango, right? So ultimately, I'll have a meeting next week. I had a great relationship with him, considering the fact that, I was not nice to him because of the pipeline. I ended the pipeline. I also gave the javelins. Do you ever hear of a javelin? Javelin is called a tank buster. They say that Obama gave them sheets and I gave them javelins. If it weren't for me, all those tanks that were destroyed at the first days of the war because the tanks got stuck in the mud, some commander made a better. They would have been in Kiev in 4 hours, going down the highway. But a Russian general made a brilliant decision to go through the farmland instead. And they just had torrential rains, and the rains were so bad, and it was mud, and those tanks got stuck in the mud. I don't know who that general is, but knowing Vladimir, he's probably not around any longer because all those tanks were stuck in the mud, and they went along with the javelins. I gave them the javelins. You know that, right? I gave them javelins. They gave them sheets. But I'm going to meet with President Putin, and we're going to see what he has in mind. And if it's a fair deal, I'll reveal it to the European Union leaders and to the NATO leaders and also to President Zelensky. I think out of respect, I'll call him first. And then I'll call them after. And I may say, lots of luck, keep fighting. Or I may say, we can make a deal.
If not,
I will tell you this. I've seen a poll coming out of Ukraine. 88% of the people would like to see a deal made. And if you go back 3 years, everybody was gung-ho for war. Everybody's gung-ho for war until you have it. It's an amazing thing. I had it with a couple of countries where I couldn't get a deal done with one particular country. And I just couldn't. The guy's great. He's a friend of mine. Great. Good leader. Tough as hell. I couldn't get the deal done. And then he went into war for a short period of time. You know where I'm talking about. First term. And it was nasty. Guys being killed all over the place. And he went through 1 week of war, and I was able to get the deal done. He said, this is nasty. Yes, please.
Yeah, just to follow up on what you were saying there. First of all, Volodymyr Zelensky is not invited on Friday?
He wasn't a part of it. I would say he could go, but he's gone to a lot of meetings. He's been there for 3.5 years. Nothing happened.
And what is the definition?
I mean, do you want somebody that's been doing this for 3.5 years? What's the definition of a good deal? I'll tell you after I hear what the deal is. Because there could be many definitions. You're talking about a very large and complex situation. Now, I tell you, the war that I just settled with Azerbaijan and with, as you know, in Armenia was almost as complex as this one, having to do with routes, trade.
Meeting on Friday with Vladimir Putin.
Well, we're going to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and at the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made.
How will you know that?
Because that's what I do. I make deals.
Yeah,
please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to ask you two questions, one about China, one about Russia, if I could. On China, your administration agreed to send the most advanced or advanced NVIDIA and AMD chips.
No, obsolete. No.
Obsolete chip. Well, and then 15% of the profits.
You mean the 20s? No. This is an old chip that China already has. And I deal with Jensen, who's a great guy, and NVIDIA. The chip that we're talking about, the H20, it's an old chip. China already has it in a different form, different name, but they have it. Or they have a combination of two will make up for it and even then some. Now Jensen Jensen's a very brilliant guy, and Jensen also has a new chip, the Blackwell. Do you know what the Blackwell is? The Blackwell is super duper advanced. I wouldn't make a deal with that, although it's possible I'd make a deal, a somewhat enhanced in a negative way Blackwell. In other words, take 30% to 50% off of it. But that's the latest and the greatest in the world. Nobody has it. They won't have it for 5 years. But the H20 is obsolete. You know, it's one of those things, but it still has a market. So I said, listen, I want 20% if I'm going to approve this for you, for the country, for our country, for the U.S. I don't want it myself. You know, every time I say like 747, I want, yeah, for the Air Force. So I just wanted, so when I say I want 20, I want for the country. I only care about the country. I don't care about myself. And he said, would you make it 15? So we negotiated a little deal. So he's selling a essentially old chip that Huawei has a similar chip, a chip that does the same thing. And I said, good, if I'm going to give it to you, because they have a, they have a stopper, what we call a stopper, not allowed to do it. It's really known as a restrictive covenant. And I said, if I'm going to do that, I want you to pay us as a country something, because I'm giving you a release. I released them only from the H20. Now, on the Blackwell, I think he's coming to see me again about that. But that will be a unenhanced version of the big one. Like, I don't know if you know it, we will sometimes sell fighter jets to a country and we'll give them 20% less than we have. You know what I mean, right? That's the same.
So on Russia, do you see a time, Mr. President, when there could be normal trade between the U.S. and Russia? Should your meeting go well? Should there be peace?
I do, yeah. Russia has a very valuable piece of land. If Vladimir Putin would go toward business instead of toward war, you know, it's a warring nation. That's what they do. They fight a lot of wars. A friend of mine said Russia's tough because they just keep on fighting. They beat Hitler, so did we, and they beat Napoleon. You know, they've been doing this for a long time. I asked a question to a very, very smart man that some people like and some people don't like. Viktor Orban, right, from Hungary, the head of Hungary, and he's in that same area and knows the two countries very well. I said, this was before Biden didn't do anything to get us out of it. He could have gotten us out of that. It would have never happened. I said, so can Russia be beaten by Ukraine? He looked at me like, what a stupid question. He said, Russia's a massive country, and they win their country and they win their life through wars. They fight wars. That's what they do. He said, China beats you with trade. Russia beats you with war. That was a very interesting statement. China's not beating us with trade, not when I'm in charge. But they were beating Biden with trade, but they never beat us with trade. Don't forget, China had to pay $400 billion worth of tariffs when I was last time. That was last time. And if we didn't have COVID, all of this stuff we would be loaded. We're finding hundreds of billions of dollars of cash is pouring into our country now because of tariffs. And all we're doing is we're doing what they do to us. It's so beautiful to see it. They found last month, as you saw, $25 billion of excess cash flow. They're saying, where did it come from? I said, I'll tell you where it came from. It came from a place called tariffs, and we're doing very well. We're really doing well. But I expect to have a meeting with Putin that I think it'll be good, but it might be bad. And I'm here for one reason, to get rid of a war that somebody else started. Should have never happened. And if I could end it, great. Complex war, a lot of bad blood, But Zelensky's been there for 3.5 years. So if you put him in a room, now I will say this, ultimately I'm going to put the two of them in a room. I'll be there or I won't be there. And I think it'll get solved. Yeah, please be happy.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Excuse me, I'm going to suggest, because do you have any other questions on D.C.? Because I don't want them to be. Wait. These are incredible people. I don't want them to be standing up here on subjects. Does anybody have a question of them? And then then you guys can leave. Okay, a question, Brian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. All right.
And by the way, this is only on D.C., and then they're going to leave because it's unfair to have them stand up here all day long.
I
Brian.
agree. I've got two questions for you. First, about D.C. This is personal for me as well. Last year, I was robbed on the streets by one of these teenage thugs. Had a gun, got away with it. Let's talk about the effort that between law enforcement, prosecutors, and judges, because it's a recycling belt. Like, these kids go, they don't fear the police. They know it. If you talk about how we've got to get these judges and put these kids behind bars, right. Adult crimes deserve adult penalties. And my second question, I'll after you answer that, please.
You want me to answer it?
Whoever wants to take it.
Okay. It's real. Do you want me to answer it? Go ahead. Here's the problem. Assuming that they're 17 years, older than 17 years old, I can get the case. If they're under 18 years of age, I can only get the case if it's murder, rob one, rape, even if they shoot a gun but don't kill you, I can't get it. So the law has to be changed. As the president said, cashless bail. That has to be changed. All right, then, even assuming I get the case, I get jurisdiction, I get a conviction, the D.C. Council has given the judges the ability to give probation on shootings. And so then it's up to them. All of these things, the Youth Rehabilitation Incarceration Reduction Act, and now they want to seal records. So if we work hard, we get a conviction, they want to wipe it out. So that needs all to be changed.
Okay,
Mr.
Question.
Pam, would you answer that also?
Yeah, and just back to that topic. Let's be clear, though. We're going to charge them, and we're going to track every single thing they do throughout every step of the court process and report back to you and let all of you know what's happening to them. Because the people who are prosecuting them, the judges who are trying them, they also need to be held accountable.
Mr. President, you also made a comment. This is the most people we've ever seen in this briefing.
I've never seen
ever, right?
Yeah. I've never seen any. Where's Caroline? Where's my superstar? Caroline. Is Caroline in the back? Where's Caroline? Come here, Caroline. Come here, Caroline. Come here. Is she doing a good job, by the way? Come here. Is this the largest crowd that you've ever seen?
This is definitely the most packed briefing, and I think all of you would agree. I think it's why we need to build a ballroom.
Mr. President, I have a better idea.
All right, Brian, go ahead.
My question is this. You're building the big, beautiful ballroom.
Yeah.
Could we build a big, beautiful briefing room, updated technology, more seats?
I don't want to do that. I don't want you to be comfortable. So no, I don't want to make life comfortable. So look. Let's just do this. Let's do this. It's going to be a big thing. We're going to Russia. That's going to be a big deal. What happens, happens. I'll let you know what happens. You'll be the first to know. I'll be calling the European leaders. I'm going with totally. I mean, we have a lot of talks. They're great people. They're great leaders, actually, and they want to get back. Honestly, as one of them said, I've OD'd on trying to settle Ukraine. They've OD'd, meaning they've overdosed on the settlement of Ukraine. Not a nice expression, but boy, is it accurate. They're tired of it. They want to get back to spending money on their countries. You know, Biden gave them $350 billion. Europe gave $100 billion. It should be much more than that. Shouldn't have been that kind of, they should have had equalization, but they didn't. But you know what? Still a lot of money. They want to get back to building their own countries. They really want it resolved. My relationship with the European leaders, as you saw, is extremely good. It's perfect. It's beautiful. Wait. And we're going to try. I'll be in touch with them. I have 5 of them call me. You think it's easy? There are a lot of European leaders, but they rely on me. Very much rely on me. If it wasn't for me, this thing would never get solved until the last person breathing is dead.
Would you talk to them before?
Mr. President.
Yeah, I did. I'm talking to them right now. So I'm talking to the European leaders. I'll be talking to President Zelensky. I'm going to get everybody's ideas. I go into that thing fully loaded right up there, and we're going to see what happens. Now, I think one of two things is going to happen. It's going to be a good meeting, and we'll go a step further. We'll get it done. I'd like to see a ceasefire very, very quickly. Very quick. I'd like to see it immediately, but I'd like to see it very quickly. And we're going to be dealing with the European leaders, and we're going to be dealing with President Zelensky, and hopefully we're going to have a great success. As far as this, what we did today, and I think you were here for D.C. more so than even Russia, because Russia will be, we have a couple of days to go, but the Russia is going to be very interesting. But to me, what is very exciting, and we're going to take back our capital. We're going to make it beautiful again, but we're going to make it, more importantly, safe again. It's going to be so safe. It's going to be a model. And then we'll look at other cities also. But other cities are studying what we're doing. And you have some capable people in other cities. They can do it too. But we have a great group of professionals. We're going to have a safe, beautiful capital, and it's going to happen very quickly. Thank you all. Thank you all very much.
Should the Justice Department appeal the Epstein decision today, Mr. President?
How long will the takeover of D.C. police last?
We'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll have another briefing.
We'll see the National Guard on their streets.
All of them.
And the several superstars there, President Donald Trump and the GOAT, Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, mentioning just at the last moment there will be a press briefing tomorrow as well. So stay tuned for more updated information. A packed house. President Trump mentioning that he does not want those journalists too comfortable. So we're going to keep the size of that James S. Brady briefing room as the new ballroom will start construction in relatively, we'll see here, a few weeks, a few months, as those plans being laid out, in addition to a lot of discussion regarding the meeting between President Trump and President Putin in Alaska come Friday. And he is the master at deal makers. Ultimately, it won't be his deal per se, but he is the one guiding it. Because without him, as he mentioned, perhaps the last person would be breathing their last breath in this conflict. But this is the overarching meeting and press conference specifically on making Washington, D.C. and our big cities safe again. And with his law enforcement team there, it sounds like Terry Cole will be making a big impact at this as the interim commissioner of Washington, D.C. Metro Police, in addition to his work at the Drug Enforcement Agency. And, of course, Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, D.C. Attorney Judge Jeanine Pirro, and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, among others there, to really lay out a number of different items to make D.C. beautiful again and to make D.C. safe again. Ultimately, great again. And good news that President Trump mentioning there as well, please keep your plans to travel to the federal city with Mr. Burgum as well, and the cabinet working overtime to make the park services and all the federal lands especially quite beautiful for you to enjoy and to view. Thank you for our sponsors here at RSBN and the Live Desk. We have allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Medical freedom is truly in the crosshairs. Now 25% off ivermectin and mebendazole. Use code RSBN10 for an additional 10% off. It is almost noon o'clock on the East Coast, 9 a.m. on the Golden West Coast. Within 24 hours and with a prescription, you will have these life-saving medications to your door. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Scan that QR code now. Ivermectin and mebendazole, now 25% off with the additional 10% off using code RSBN10. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And covecure.com/RSBN, covepure.com/RSBN. It is quite a cure, though, to what ails the water supply. Do you know Utah and Florida just passed bills regarding getting rid of the fluoride and the pesticides, the chemicals in your water? JAMA Pediatricians, it's a scientific medicine outlet, and also doctors who have found that there were 2 milligrams per liter of fluoride in the water. So RFK Jr., our great Secretary of Health and Human Services, was right about this, some in the legacy media crying and screaming conspiracy theory. No, it's actually the case that you have that in the drinking water. And we know with toothpaste, in certain regards, that's why I use Tom's, not a specific endorsement necessarily, other than it doesn't have that sodium fluoride, which is a chemical ultimately, and it's led to a reduction in the IQ by at least 2 points for young children. So protect what matters, get the fluoride out of the water. You can do that with covepure.com/RSBN. Get their deal $200 off now. Their ClearWave technology is so efficient that it can make your water not only taste good, but the best part is the touchscreens let you choose whatever temperature you want on the water. Cold, hot, warm, it could not be easier. And it removes 99.9% of impurities, including the fluoride, in your water, and forever chemicals will get cleared out using this great device. covepure.com/RSBN. Get 200% off now, as it is high noon on the East Coast in Washington, D.C. A beautiful day. A little rainy this morning here in the loveliest village on the plains, but we'll see how that goes as summertime is not quite over with yet, but fall right around the corner. Always a wonderful time of year. Get all America First updates and exclusive offers at rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. Stick with us this week. Some great interviews and programming in store for you. So we'll keep that right around the bend and around the corner. In the meantime, I'm Robert McNeely. It's always a joy to be with you here at RSBN's live desk. If there's any breaking news in the meantime, we'll be right back here with you. But have a great Monday, and God bless you and yours, and we'll see you very soon.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.